from a field of dreams. Oh yeah, alright. Celebration's going down tonight. So good, so right. We're making innovation come alive. Dreaming bigger and better. Building it together on a mission for a vision worldwide. CI Live. CI Live. Imagination meets passion. Ambition's gonna put it into action. Collaboration and connection. Taking our direction to a brand new dimension. Oh yeah, alright. Celebration's going down tonight. So good, so right. We're making innovation come alive. Dreaming bigger and better. Building it together on a mission for a vision worldwide. CI Live. Oh yeah, alright. Oh yeah, alright. So good, so right. We're making innovation come alive. Dreaming bigger and better. Building it together on a mission for a vision worldwide. CI Live.
WHO 13 here in Des Moines. Happy to say it's a beautiful day, and we're so thankful that you're here to enjoy this moment. The moments over the next couple of days will be amazing. CI Live has been an instrumental portion of our central Iowa area, but now we're sharing it with the entire world, and you're going to find some of the most amazing speakers you could ever imagine could come together all in one place at one time. I'm so humbled and honored to be a part of this again this year. I hope you enjoy it today. I think you're really
Maximum security prison, the Secret Service called him a hero and praised his courage and integrity for telling them before he got caught. Brian wrote the book Cyber Fraud, The Web of Lives, was featured on The Lead with Jake Tapper, and attracted the attention of Shark Tank star Texas billionaire Mark Cuban. He once appeared on the front page of Wired.com, CNN Money, CNET, Forbes, and The Washington Post, all in the same day.
Now that hacking has kind of moved into the movies and TV and more mainstream, even if we don't always understand it, everyone in here knows clearly that's not a great idea. Since that time, I gave a TED Talk. It was called Wiretapping the Secret Service Can Be Easy and Fun. And that led to being able to speak publicly about more and more things and finding ways to educate consumers, businesses, and ultimately just sort of spread awareness as to what's going on. I think initially I had a different topic picked in mind for this event, but then Russia invaded Ukraine. And a whole bunch of things happened. So I changed things up kind of last minute because looking at the good side of having to generate content, a lot of things happened in the last couple of weeks. I was an advisor to Mark Cuban for a bit after helping him with an app, and an advisor to John McAfee prior to his death recently, and worked with his wife and on his presidential campaign. I've the fortunate experience of working with a lot of really amazing people. I think the draw is, I'm not the smartest person in the room, but we all like watching car accidents. So maybe there's some sort of curiosity as to what is this guy gonna do next. From cancer, so I don't think I can take it out of the presentation anymore. But that's basically my day-to-day. I'm just a little bit bigger. Yeah, that's pretty much it. More monitors. This is one of the first news stories that I was able to kind of put together with a news team. The way Google Maps works is the order changes based on distance away from you, how many reviews you have, how many photos on the business listing, how complete the overall business listing is. So you can modify your ranking with a couple of tricks. You can also open up your own business at a UPS store or 10 UPS stores. To the Zoolander School of Kids Who Can't Read Good. And then I changed, I added a White House location for Snowden's super secret hiding place. I changed the Russian embassy in London to a picture of Vladimir Putin in drag. And I don't put that in the presentation just in case it actually makes it onto the internet somehow. And you're laughing because you figured out that, yeah, I don't want to get killed by him for a joke. I've already taken enough risks, let's put it that way. All of my lives are used up. Then this I did for a TED Talk. I made a snowboarding shop a year later inside of the White House called Edwards Snow Den. It still makes me laugh. So this is kind of how it worked. It's not a hack per se. It's using their kind of problem. The area code especially. We all know that we're getting, how many people get spam calls on their phone? It's kind of getting ridiculous. Like something's gonna have to get done about that. I'm working on it. But the idea is we all look at the area code and go, I don't know anyone from Hawthorne, California. I don't know anyone from this place, and we don't answer. We said it's a voicemail. But we don't have any way of discerning if I'm reaching out to one of these businesses and I don't see the area code, how am I gonna know? And that's what I was trying to illustrate. So I got a duplicate built, and that phone number recorded calls for quality assurance purposes. And city, and so do you, and so do you, and your intentions are always good, and everyone's gonna help us create a better product. Except, I don't wanna single you out, but you're being a bad person today, and you're kind of frustrated, and so you wanna build some fake things to monetize that. And that can really cause a lot of problems because we can never really determine someone's intent, even looking at their actions. There could be an ulterior motive. I flagged the original location and it disappeared. Mine became the default. So if you looked up Secret Service, Washington, DC, or however we search for things, it's usually a combination of city, state, name of business, category of business. Plumber, Des Moines, Iowa. Best plumber, Des Moines, Iowa, whatever. And it gives you the relevant, prove it to you. In 5 minutes or less, if I can prove it to you, you take this seriously and you deal with it. Or I'll leave and you won't hear back from me. He goes, okay. I said, okay, what we're gonna do, you're gonna call the DC office of the Secret Service right now. Okay. He pulls his phone out and taps on it. Yep, this is Agent so-and-so. His actual name was Brian, which is not helpful to the story because it confuses everybody because my name is also Brian. He goes, yep. No, I'm just following up on something. Yep, thanks, man, talk to you later. Click. He knows the guy. They have a rapport. They've worked together before. The person that he got on the phone is someone he knows from real life, small agency. That's when my phone rang. Got a notification. You have a new call from marketing campaign Secret Service. Huh. Would you like to play that call for quality control purposes? Understand your Miranda rights, but you are not under arrest. And we all know what you say when they say that. Free to go? That was not the direction I was gonna push that day. I wanted to. It was like, oh, so I can just leave now? I definitely wanted to, but I went there for a purpose, and I did what I did. So I was going to be honest about that. It was the right thing to do. And show them how it worked. So then they called Google, and then they called me back. They called them back, and they yelled at them. And Google had to turn off all new map registrations till they fixed the problem. Except they didn't. And they told Google, they told the Secret Service they did. 2 months later, they turned it back on because everyone had forgotten. So that's why I did the same thing for the TED Talk to show that Google lied to the Secret Service. Nothing ever happened to them, as far as I know, but vindicated at least a little bit. They let me go after 4 hours. They're like, that was really, I mean, you're a hero for coming up and tell us you're an idiot for doing it in the first place. I'm like, yes, I completely agree. It's the smartest and dumbest thing I've ever done. But it let me know that just because some organization is big and they say they're right does not make them right. And sometimes people miss things. Sometimes there's a scientist, like in the movie, where no one believes him, but he's got to find a way to tell them because the world's going to come to an end, like Moonfall. Like there's a kind of dumpy glasses, nerd conspiracy theorist in the basement on his house with computers and shockingly like me. And then there's the handsome astronaut, which wish was me, but definitely isn't. I'm more the other guy. But the other guy doesn't get to go to space, except when there's now, conspiracy theory and he's suddenly relevant. So a lot has happened recently. Overall, at 9 o'clock, so they all get wet by the sprinkler. FaceTime me to confirm, that's one way to solve the business email compromise thing, is never do anything over email for financial transactions. And it's a good advice for consumers. You can do that over FaceTime or Skype or Zoom, and if someone's like, I can't Zoom, I'm on a plane, maybe loosen up your schedule. Maybe don't have emergencies that are detrimental, like, well, my child will die if I don't send this right now. Be like, you're a bad parent. Like, how is your kid gonna die in like 5 minutes? Like, you didn't plan something out? The urgency is usually fake. People will build a false sense of urgency in order to trick you to clicking on something that is against your interest. Your American Express account has been hacked. Please click here to confirm or dispute these charges. Last month it was, your Norton antivirus subscription is about to be renewed on your credit card. I was like, yes, this is good. I've never seen this one before. And it made me go, oh no, like, did I accidentally sign up for Norton? I wouldn't do that. I don't think I'd do that. I stopped drinking a long time ago. I haven't ordered anything weird. I haven't had any like drunk Amazon sessions where I accidentally ordered like a full-size kayak and a stuffed yak. Like, and it shows up at your house and you're like, when did this happen? No, Norton, it's bogus across the board. I got a phone call yesterday. I kid you not. Press 1 to hear the message again. I picked up and it said, press 1 to hear that message again. I didn't hear the message you screwed up. All right, push 1. Thank you for calling Business SEO Optimization Services. They will do anything to get you to stay on the phone. Buy a gas can somewhere and walk around and get money from people? Sure. I'd rather give money to people on the street knowing that 5 of them are scamming or 10 of them are scamming, just to make sure that the ones who aren't scamming get money. But over email and phone, never. Block the number, move on with your day. Don't answer the emails. You should know, most of the time people send emails with the idea of communicating, not trying to always sell something. That's, if you click on links in those emails or open attachments, that's how the third one happens, ransomware. Or occasionally it happens through going to websites like you shouldn't. A good rule of thumb for the internet is if you're going on the internet to look for something, go find it and don't get distracted on the way. Because everything on the internet is designed to distract you from what you were trying to do. I'm going to CNN or I'm going to Fox News. I would say don't go to either. Go to NPR or BBC or something else. And I'm going to go look for this thing. Oh, wait. Click the ad. I use an ad blocker, so I don't see most of those things. I would recommend it as well. They're built into the browsers nowadays. If it distracts you, it's not going to be good for you. Almost certainly. They're not doing you a favor. You're doing them a favor. Plain and simple. Most of the time, the internet is run on sales and our eyeballs generating views. So it's just not in your interest. And then what ends up happening is malware and bad links get hijacked or built into legitimate sites or sites that got hacked and they didn't know it. And you end up becoming the victim. And then the ransomware takes over. And if you're a small business and you can't afford a ransomware expert, because why would you? You lose your business. I went to go build a trophy for a joke, actually. And I went to the trophy shop nearby, and it was closed. And their IT guy, which was the owner's son, couldn't fix it. They'd lost a business they'd been running for 30 years. It was really a shame. And there's not FBI isn't going to be able to recover the money if you send the ransom. You could definitely get some help from them, but you're on your own. Back up your stuff off-site, disconnected from that computer. Put it in the cloud if you have to. If you don't want to lose it, back it up 2 or 3 different times in different places. Put it on a DVD or buy a special extra hard drive. You back everything up and then go put it in a fire safe, like you would negatives for photos. So what's happening lately? The way it happens, the top threats by type or method. Malware is 58% of attacks. Social engineering, which means anyone who's... And they started changing the streaming services in Russia to broadcast footage of the war. Because Russia was like, no, we're not bombing inside of their own country. It's like, we're not bombing Ukraine. It's a lie. So their streaming services get hacked. And then their space agency gets hacked. And then Anonymous says, well, we hacked their spy satellites. And Russia denies it. But I think you're really going to admit it. Like, if someone hacked our spy satellites, we're going to go, yeah, we screwed up. They hacked our spy satellites. They got them now. We're not, that would never happen. So it's everywhere. And there's videos on Facebook and places, people surfing through all the channels on Russian TV, and it's just the same footage over and over and over again, like getting all mad. Like, I can't even watch SpongeBob. Like, you can't, nothing. It's all war footage. And Anonymous started releasing messages like this. So the Russian Space Agency sure does love their satellite imaging. Better yet, they'd love vehicle monitoring system. The WSO2 server was deleted. Credentials were rotated and the server is shut down. The Network Battalion, which is this hacking group, NB65. All the emails between, 100,000 emails between all their members got leaked, and sure enough, they were Russian. And Conti came back and said, we're going to defend Russia, and anyone who attacks us is going to get attacked back. The problem is, like the phone calls, when you hack someone, you usually use a proxy or some sort of hop in to mask where you're hacking from. So it's like a church, a bakery, something with really low security. Like the person who didn't lock their computer earlier. I could use that as a hopping point. And they're going to see Des Moines Area Community College if I hacked from here. But that means an innocent victim is going to get hacked back. That's part of the reason we don't directly hack back. We really enjoyed Kaspersky's endpoint security. So if you use Kaspersky, immediately uninstall it when you get home. It's a great foothold. Their source code looks blank sloppier than Putin's invasion. Several clients appear to use Star Telecom, blah, 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 blah. Looks like they got a bunch of passports and access to the Ministry of Justice of the Russian Federation, Central Directorate for the Federal Service of Ecological, Technological, and Nuclear Supervision. They have been doing a lot of damage. The most significant thing about all this is like 2 weeks, which means they know or should have known better and had put things in place that would have prevented this from happening so quickly. What would happen if your company or your house suddenly became the target, whether it's deserved or not? How fast are these guys going to get in? Because chances are it was something simple, like not having NFA. So for takeaways for the regular person, or if you own a company, training. You got a little bit of training here, but the idea being, if you have a company, you want to conduct simulations. You want to fake email. You want to do testing and pretend to be a bad guy. People hire people like me to be the bad guy, to break into, whether I'm doing lock picking or I'm doing some sort of exercise to break into your company, to show you how I did it. There's a Sylvester Stallone movie. He breaks into prisons and breaks out of prisons. Not that cool or in as good a shape, but I'm taller. That's the key. Hire an expert if you don't know. It's worth it. Find a reputable expert, get third-party opinions, whatever you got to do. Use Google Maps or Yelp. No, that's a good place to start, but not the end-all be-all. Inventory your stuff, very serious. Don't write passwords down. Mail me at brian@brianseely.com. You can text me. Otherwise, the phone call, I probably won't know you. But if I get an Iowa area code, you might always give it a shot. If I can be of help in any way, please don't hesitate to reach out. And thank you for coming.
In Des Moines, Iowa, discover one of the best places in the country to live for high salaries and affordable cost of living. Where owning a home with a spacious yard is achievable today. Where living here means exploring the great outdoors year-round. And free public art meets 800 miles of recreational trails. In Des Moines, you'll feel safe, you'll feel welcome, you'll feel at home. This must be the place. Take a virtual tour today at livedsmusa.com.
The center, go west. If these directions confuse, allow me to use a second or two to blow your mind. You see, West Des Moines leaves other cities behind. Major users say we're a high-tech hotbed with access to Wi-Fi, not just for the rich guy, a broadband initiative for you and I. And if that doesn't rouse your robots, adaptive traffic management using real-time data, giving you the green light, go! And so you know, they call us a smart city, built by big data from the ground up. Don't blink, it just keeps getting better.
Legal insurance shouldn't be saved only for rough times. It's an everyday essential, because legal is everywhere, and it's a part of everything we do. So prepare for it. Prepare for the legal that's part of the good times, like putting your newborn into your will, buying that new house, or proudly putting your hard-earned savings into a trust. But be sure you're also prepared for the legal that's part of life's struggles, like when kids make mistakes, you get caught speeding, or true love just doesn't work out. Fortunately, legal insurance from AROG is here for all of it, the good and the bad, helping you navigate your way through life.
So over the side you go, and to us, it's not exactly like a shuttle launch, but just as passionate to us, because once you get to this point, everything starts to change. That lovely color blue penetrates your very spirit. You stop hearing all the sounds of the ship, and you start hearing the sounds of the sea. There might be whales, there might be dolphins around, sometimes sharks. The divers check the outside of the sub to make sure everything's okay, and then down you go. They give you the all clear to dive. So 3 of you in this little space capsule on this dive, this journey to the bottom. It's 2.5 hours to get to the bottom of as deep as this submarine will go, about 3 miles. 2.5 hours. And the first half hour, you float down through that lovely blue, then to dark blue, deep blue, then pitch black for 2 hours. Pitch black, and it's cold, it's freezing cold. And we were sure because it's cold, it's dark, there's no sun, there can't be any life. Well, when we stop and look, we find out that that blanket of water, the 2 miles, is full of life. And it's not just any kind of life, it's spectacular. This thing is called a siphonophore. I call it a jellyfish because I'm a geologist, so I'm not. On our way down to the bottom, when we get to the bottom, we find the record of humanity on the bottom, and sometimes it comes in big clumps, and this is one big clump called Titanic. And the thing that always got me was this is a spectacular image of Titanic, and it's drawn by an artist that happened to see a lot of different photographs, and it's absolutely accurate and absolutely beautiful, and there's no way that we could make that image with our cameras because it takes a lot of technology to be able to bring that image back. Light doesn't go very far at the bottom of the sea, and yet Ken Marshall was able to do this, and he did many images like that. And so I've always had a goal of mine has always been to let's be able to do that. We commit the ship and the souls aboard for eternity to the deep. Eternity, that was eternity to us. Even now we still do that. Now that's where Jack was king of the world, if you saw the movie Titanic. That's the bow. Is this really eternity? We're there now with our technology. So with our new technology, through innovation, no shipwreck is beyond our reach. And we're getting very good at mapping Titanic. Here we are sitting on the bow, looking forward. Those are the anchor chains on either side. Each one of those links weighs about 350 pounds. And we're not only mapping the ship itself, and this is again that's the bridge of Titanic, where the steering wheel would be. It's in great shape.
Well, welcome back to CI Live. Aren't you glad you're here today? Just our first speaker was, amazing. There are so many things I've tried to jot down, write down. I think I opened up my phone and tried to type something in, but I was probably hacked. I don't know. But I'll tell you what, Brian is just an amazing guy. We're going to be talking with him in just a little bit as well. But we appreciate our sponsors so much. These are the people who make this happen every single year. This is the 13th year. You saw Dr. Gallo in that previous clip, and he is fascinating. It's so much fun to see him here again. We're glad to be back kind of in person again.
Yes.
After all of this time. And Allison Kate is with me, and she's with AROG.
AROG, yes. AROG Legal Insurance.
I'm going to get it right?
It's tricky.
Maybe. That's why weather guys don't use a prompter, right? They can't read. But we're so glad that you're here. And you're in charge of the marketing.
Yes.
And, this is, anybody could listen to Celia and know that, man, you've got to change up your life. And we were talking about how our companies, do that sort of thing. But then what happens if you are hacked and you need some legal help, that sort of thing. And that's what you guys are all about.
Yeah, so we are an employee benefit that companies can offer to their team members. It acts very similarly as health insurance, but instead of a network of doctors, you receive a network of attorneys. One of the features of our product is also identity theft. So if you're dealing with scamming issues or consumer fraud, that's an area where we can get you some help and make sure you navigate that through the proper channels and don't have to go through total dismay of going through that experience, because we do know how common it is. Our company faces these phishing attacks and things of that nature all the time. It's just something everyone's facing out there, like Brian spoke to, and it's about being educated, but knowing that they are constantly coming up with new ideas. Your teenager is speeding on the way to school and needs to get out of a traffic ticket. So it's all the good and bad and stressful moments of life that legal insurance could really be there to help navigate, get you a network of attorneys, and cover those issues that you need.
Allison, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank
we
you.
appreciate everything that you do and for the sponsorship. You make this happen. This is what you guys do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. We have another speaker that's coming your way, Dr. Talathia Williams. She is amazing. I got to meet with her last night. I met her before, but she's a part of a whole different type of science. She's with NOAA and IPBS, or public broadcasting. She also has the numbers. I mean, you talk about numbers and how everything works, and indefinitely. She's amazing.
Numerical concepts and makes them understandable. Dr. Williams has held appointments at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, NASA's Johnson Space Center, and the National Security Agency. She authored the book Power in Numbers, The Rebel Women of Mathematics, and partnered with the World Health Organization to develop a model to predict cataract surgical rates for countries in Africa.
Woo! That is the best introduction I have ever seen. Thank you so much. I'm super excited to be here with you today, DMAC, and to talk about going boldly, full steam ahead. Of course, I want you to get to know me a little bit. So where am I? Here. Where am I on this picture? Don't look at the names at the bottom. That makes it obvious. Yes, yes. The glasses give it away. They weren't stylish. It also sent all the boys away too in junior high school. But I share this to say, as a junior high, middle school student, I was just a regular kid. I loved being on the drill team. I loved being in the marching band. I was okay in math. I struggled in math. I was in a pre-algebra class. And halfway through my 8th grade year, I told my pre-algebra teacher I wanted to move into algebra because I was doing so good in pre-algebra. And she said, well, Talithia, it's, like, we're halfway in. You want to move in algebra in January? I'm like, yeah, I can do it. So she let me move into algebra, and that first 6 weeks I failed. And I came home with the F on my report card, and my parents said, well, do you want to go back to pre-algebra? And I'm like, no, I'm just going to stay here and struggle because I don't want my friends to know that I couldn't cut it in algebra. I started meeting with my teacher, Mr. Dorman, and by the end of my 8th grade year, I had pulled my GPA up to a B+ in algebra. And I share that to say, often I get students who are vision back in the 90s, so you missed out on this generation. It's probably coming back now when they do oldies. Now we are the oldies that people wear. But, unbeknownst to me, when I was working as a grocery store cashier, I would do a lot of mental math because you might come up to me and you'd say, hey, Talithia, here's $20. And I would try to calculate how much change I owed you before I could punch it into the cash register. So every weekend I'm doing mental math, and it was actually strengthening my math skills, unbeknownst to me. I decided to go to Spelman College in Atlanta, Georgia. So I'm from Georgia, so Spelman was really close to home for me. And that was also the first place that I ever met an African-American female mathematician. And so the idea of becoming a mathematician was really foreign to me until I got to Spelman. Here I am pictured with the late Dr. Etta Faulkner. She was one of the first Black women to get a PhD in mathematics. And it was at Spelman that I was really inspired to not just go into mathematics, but to see myself as a mathematician. It's amazing how something can become so tangible to you once you see it represented in someone, right? And so for me, that experience at Spelman and having these professors who were so supportive and encouraging motivated me to go into mathematics and to pursue it. I started a PhD program at Howard University. I didn't know anything about getting a PhD. In Georgia, it was great to graduate high school. Like going to college was like the cherry, just woo, you're doing big things. And I was sitting with Dr. Faulkner one day, and she said, have you thought about grad school? And I'm like, no, I'm about to put this bachelor's degree to work and call it a day and get a job. And she said, well, Talithia, I think you could do well in high school, in grad school. And I was just like, well, what am I gonna do with that? That's just more school and more time. And then she pulled out salaries of people who have advanced degrees. And I said, how do you sign me up for this grad school thing? What is this? How do we do that? How do we do that? So that's sort of what motivated me to go to grad school. I spent some time working at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory and the National Security Agency. I could tell you, what I did, but I'd have to kill you. Yeah, I'd have to kill you. You know, it's related to the first talk. I love that time at the NSA. The great thing about working at the NSA is you can't take your work home. Like you literally can't, everything is top secret. So it was just like, wow, I just go home and there's nothing I can do because you can't work from home. I spent time at NASA in this guy's lab, Dr. Lonnie Lane. And when I first met him, I said, hey, Dr. Lane, I'm Talithia. He says, call me Lonnie. And I'm like, oh, no, sir, I'm from Georgia. We are raised with respect. And I will not call an adult, by their first name. He's like, nope, everyone here is on a first name basis. This was how we are at JPL. One thing I loved about Lonnie is he especially wanted his summer research students to come to the table because he felt like we brought such great new ideas, right? We were innovative in our thinking and we weren't rigid because we didn't have any constraints, right? We were just like, oh, yeah, I had unlimited budget. Here's what I do. Here's an idea off the top of my head. And so I loved that experience with Lonnie because it really got me to think outside of the box, right? It got me to be more critical and more excited about research and creativity and what I could contribute, even though I felt like I was so ill-prepared in that moment. Kind of work that she was doing. One day we're out to lunch and I'm commenting on her highlights. I'm like, Claudia, wow, I'm just fangirling. I'm like, you're so beautiful, you're so pretty, and I just, your highlights. And she's like, well, I've got a guy who does my highlights. And I'm like, you let a man touch your hair? What? She's like, I'll take you. And so she made an appointment. She had to pay for it because, I didn't have any money. She made an appointment and here this guy comes and he puts these glorious blondes and highlights and lowlights in my hair. And I'm like, I just want to be Claudia. When I grow up, I'm going to be Claudia. I'm going to work at NASA. I'm going to get a PhD in space physics, and I'm going to go to this guy to get this. The Claremont College is out in sunny Southern California. And one thing I love about this picture and that I love about our faculty in particular is that, we really want our students to see that we believe that mathematical talent resides in every shape and size and form. And we really want our faculty to reflect the diversity of our students as well. And so we're very intentional. And then here's my amazing family. This is in our backyard in California. Yes, that's the orange tree. It just grows there like wildfire. Like, yeah, I got an orange tree. Everybody has an orange tree. Kids get hungry, just go outside. Grab an orange off the tree. But these are my 3 boys here and our amazing family. All right, now that you're warmed up, who's this woman? Who's this woman? Rosa Parks, yes. That was a warm-up question, guys. So, it's only getting harder from here. What's she known for? Yes, she didn't give up her seat in Montgomery bus boycott. Yay, Rosa. We celebrate her. We got stamps in her honor. There's a statue, right? We know her work in the civil rights movement. Anybody know who this young lady is? Who's this young lady? Not Katherine Johnson. What do we think it is? Anybody heard of Claudette Colvin? No, I didn't hear about her until recently either. I didn't grow up hearing about Claudette. She also didn't give up her seat on a bus 9 months before Rosa Parks. Claudette's still alive today. There's a picture of her. Why don't we know about Claudette Colvin? In fact, Claudette Colvin was actually one of the plaintiffs who was on the case that went before the Supreme Court, not Rosa Parks. Okay? When Rosa Parks didn't give up her seat, it was planned. And so she was chosen to become the image of the Montgomery bus boycott. She was in her 30s. She was fair-skinned. She was seen as someone the movement could really get behind. Claudette was a teen. She was 15, single-parent home, raised by her dad. And so she was sort of seen as someone that people couldn't quite get behind. But in some ways, Claudette paved the way for Rosa Parks, right? She was a hidden figure to lead up to this moment that Rosa Parks had. How many of you have seen the movie Hidden Figures? Yeah. Hidden Figures, if you haven't, talks about the boldness of the women, Black women, white women, Asian women who worked in the space race, in NASA's space race. And it highlights the contributions that they did, which largely before this film came out remained hidden, right? The calculations that they did to calculate the trajectories of bringing all of our astronauts home. I brought a clip for you. Here's my favorite clip from that movie.
So we have the vehicle's speed, the launch window, and for argument's sake, the landing zone is the Bahamas. Should be enough to figure the go, no-go?
Yeah, in theory, sir.
We need to be past theory at this point.
We'll be able to calculate a go, no-go with that information.
When exactly is that going to happen?
Catherine? Have a go at it?
The goal point for re-entry is 2,990 miles from where we want Colonel Glenn to land. If we assume that's the Bahamas, 544 miles per hour of 46.56 degrees, 2,990 miles. Okay, so that puts your landing zone at 5.0667 degrees north, 77.3333 degrees west, which is here. Give or take 20 square miles.
I like your numbers.
So how do we then move forward boldly together, right, in community? Well, I think it all depends on data. I'm a statistician, I'm a data scientist, and I've been looking at ways that data has really started to change the way that we interact with people around us, the way that we live our life. In particular, it changes the way we listen to music. Maybe you've got Pandora or Spotify. But the way that these things operate is really through data, right? Curating your own personal radio station, looking at your likes and your don't likes and the genres that you listen to the most in order to give you a personalized weekly playlist. Right? Or maybe it's what we watch. I don't know about you, but during the pandemic, our family sort of became addicted to Netflix because it was just like, okay, what else are we gonna watch? I get in the car, and before I crank it up, I open up the Waze app, and I'm like, how do I get where I need to go quickly, and how do I get around traffic? And so that's what Waze does. Waze uses the GPS of your phone and everyone else who's using the app to get you to the fastest way to get to your destination, the quickest time possible, real-time updating. If there's an accident on the highway, it'll alert you to go off. It'll say, hey, there's an accident, exit here, go around, get back on the highway, right? All of that is data. Data is now sort of our new space race. Data is what is driving us as a country. How many of you, when was the last time you walked into a bank? How many of you walked into a bank in the last month? You, yeah. How many of you haven't walked into a bank in the past year? Right. Because I can do everything on my phone. I can sign that check, I can deposit it, I can transfer funds, I can pay people. I can't remember the last time I've gone into a physical bank because big data is now our banking solution, right? We don't even need to interact with tellers anymore. So then what's the drawback? What's the drawback when, we've got a space program that systematically sort of excluded women, back in the 50s, 60s, 70s? What's the drawback when we do that now in society, when we sort of forget about the inherent diversity as we're moving forward? You can say, hey, did someone blink? Maybe you want to retake this picture, right? So in this article, a son had gotten the camera for his mom, and he noticed that every time he took a picture of her, it kept asking, did someone blink? Did someone blink? And so the issue was a data issue. When they were building the algorithm, the way that we build a modeling algorithm, we have to train it on data. And so we give it images of like, all these eyes are open, all these eyes are closed, so I want you to learn how to read open and closed so that we don't produce a product that inadvertently discriminates, right, or prejudices a certain feature of a face. Machine learning can also perpetuate bias when it's asked questions like, who's likely to commit another crime? Right, recidivism algorithms sometimes perpetuate bias, or who's eligible for same-day delivery, Right? Often these decisions are made by algorithms, and so we have to be thoughtful about how we train our algorithms so that these are equitable. So then where do we start? Right? It's a big question, it's a big problem. How do we tackle it? What do we do in our little community, in our surrounding? How do we really make a dent in this in society? Right? I start with the people closest to me. So here's my family here. And we do Christmas big, y'all. We just, we go all out. We're angels, we're in the play, we're singing. We love, love, love Christmas. But this particular Christmas, Papa, my father-in-law, who had lived with us, had passed away right around Thanksgiving. And so we wanted to sort of outsource Christmas this year. We were like, let's get out of the house. Let's go somewhere for Christmas. And so we went to my mom's house in Georgia. And Mom has like Charlie Brown Christmas, right? It's like, ooh, little big Christmas tree, a couple gifts. And, we were like, oh, Santa can't leave big bikes and stuff because he knows we got to fly back to California. So I'm like, this is a win-win. We need to come to Georgia every Christmas to be like, oh, Santa could only leave a truck. This is great. We're celebrating. We're honoring Papa, but sort of not in the house and, just around other family. And what do you think I said? Y'all were like, statistically, no. I said, what do you think? Right? Like, come on, I'm not gonna give it away. What do you think, son? You tell me. He says, I think grown-ups eat the cookies and milk. I don't know. But how does he get to every kid's house in one night? I guess I believe 52%. And I'm thinking, that's my boy. Like, this child, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. Like, he is just, And I respond, don't forget your margin of error. Like, have I not taught you anything? Like, what do you know? Come on, your mother's a statistician. You don't just throw out a number. What's the rate? So data science begins at home, right? Thinking about training up the next generation, for me, starts right in the house, right? How do I educate these boys to be thoughtful, to be mathematically inquisitive, to question their environment? So he goes to his little brother. He says, I think I know how I can prove that Santa is real. And so now I'm eavesdropping. I'm like, what? Whoa, what are we doing? He says, if we get back to California and we've got gifts under the tree, we'll know that Santa's real. I'm like, my baby's doing hypothesis testing. What? I'm good. My job as a parent is done. He's doing a hypothesis test. He's gonna set an experiment. He's gonna collect data and make a conclusion based on the data, right? So he set a null hypothesis, here's the alternative, and data collection, right? And if you think about it, as a society, that's really how we have to approach every problem that we face. When we look at climate change, when we look at, other problems that are facing society, it's about data collection. It's about what's the question, what's the experiment, how are we gonna get data to make an informed decision? So I called the neighbor and I was like, you know where the key is. Just go to Walmart after Christmas when everything's on sale, go crazy with $100. And that's what our neighbor did. Thanks, Paul. So we came back. That's my expression of, wow, I'm so surprised. Who knew this was gonna happen? And the kids are like, oh, Santa's real. Yes, there'll be a collection at the end for the therapy that they need. But in the meantime, this was awesome. And it was really fun for us. Notice how we traveled, future data science rock star, because, basically. Let's talk about how we can go boldly with national engagement. So yes, you want to get the people close to you, thinking about STEAM. One of my passions is to get the public, right? How do I get the public interested in STEAM? Because every time I get on a plane or a train or, a boat, I haven't been on a boat lately, but when I do get on boats and, folks are like, what do you do? And I say, oh, I'm a math professor. What do y'all say? What do y'all say? I hate math. Oh, let me tell you about that time. Oh, I hate. I'm like, why do I always invoke let me tell you. If I say I'm an English professor, you're like, oh, I loved my English teacher. She was just great. Oh, English, yay. Math, oh, right? Everybody goes to that negative math memory. And I don't like that. I don't want you to go there. I want you to go to something that makes you happy. So I authored the book Power in Numbers, The Rebel Women of Mathematics. They weren't really rebelling. They were just trying to like be a part of math, just like the guys were. One of the women that I highlight is Winifred Merrill. She's the first woman to get a PhD in mathematics. And she really opened the door for women coming behind her. She got her PhD from Columbia University. And she had to petition the board to be accepted to the program. So she had all the qualifications, but they were like, well, we've never accepted a woman before. And so she petitioned them, and they finally agreed on one condition. It was that she not be able to take classes with the guys. So she got the syllabus and the book, and they were like, go forth and self-teach yourself, right? It didn't stop her. It was written about in the New York Times. Notice what they said. According to the New York Times, she was modestly dressed in a walking dress of dark brown stuff trimmed with velvet of the same material, and wore a brown chip hat which had a pompon of white lace and feathers. I want you to be the first person to get a PhD in something. And the article's like, yeah, but what did he wear? What kind of suit was that? Was that dress? Was that couture? What did she have on, right? Another woman that gets highlighted in the book is Katherine Johnson. And one of my goals in writing this book was thinking about women that I would have learned to learn about when I was growing up. I was fortunate to go to Spelman and see all these amazing women mathematicians, but I really would have loved to know them in middle school and high school, and even in fun and exciting. Here she is with Stephen Colbert on the Stephen Colbert Show. Build a brain, can we make life? What's living inside of you? And so each of these episodes, the common thread in them is data, right? Collecting data, looking at data is really the common thread. And so I was one of 3 co-hosts. So whenever there was anything math, statistics, data related, I got to come on and talk about it. And so that was really fun for me and for my mom, who's watching it all the time. This was very different from my life as a professor. This, there's no training. I wasn't like, Hollywood actress. So they really had to school me, So here we are, here's one of the producers, and she's giving me some pointers, and I'm like, okay, all right, say it like this. And they'd be like, all right, Talithia, we need you to sound more excited. No, even more excited. And I'm just like, there's only so much excitement I can bring to black holes. There's so much. And she said, these aren't students in your classroom. They can turn the channel. They can change. So you got to keep them plugged in and glued in with your excitement. And so that was really fun. This picture here, this is one of my co-hosts, Andre Fenton. And for this scene, and I'm going to show you a clip of it in a moment, they're telling us, they're like, okay, there's a brain that's going to descend in front of you, and we want you to open your arms and welcome the brain. Just open, and it's going to fall down like that. And Andre and I are like, okay, well, what angle do we start at? What's the velocity? How fast do you want me to go? Where do we stop? What's the angle that we... And they're like, just feel it. Just feel it. Just open yeah, but when you say feel, am I starting here? Am I starting here? Is it a quick motion? And they were like, these scientists, just, So here's a clip from the show.
Inside a human brain, there's about 100 billion neurons.
And each one of them can connect to 10,000 others.
And from these connections comes everything. The human brain can compose symphonies, create beautiful works of art.
It allows us to navigate our world, to probe the universe, and to invent technology that can do amazing things.
Now, some of that technology is aimed at replicating the brain that created it. Artificial intelligence, or AI. But has it even come close to what these babies can do?
For ages, computers have done
Build a brain? And if we could, should we?
The last thing I want to share with you is how we might chart this path for future engagement in STEAM, and some of the work that I've been able to do in that space as well. No, we can't build a brain, in case you're wondering. Not quite yet. We're so far away from that. You'll remember my mentor from JPL, Dr. Claudia Alexander. This is a picture of her. She got to work on the Cassini mission. And, the question is, how can we really start to boldly transform STEAM to make it more inclusive and representative of society? And my time with Claudia, my time at JPL, my time in Lonnie's lab, really sort of gave me an example of this ecosystem that had all of that. Right? And it got me thinking, how might I recreate that ecosystem for the next generation of folks who are coming behind us? So modeling my time with Claudia, my mentorship with her, and some of her passion led me to start a STEAM conference for girls of color at Harvey Mudd College 12 years ago. Again, we're in sunny Southern California, but our student body wasn't very diverse at all. I think the year that I joined in 2008, we had maybe 5 Black students total. And so being in a place that's so diverse and yet not having those students on our campus made me wonder, where is the disconnect? And how do we start to build that pipeline of students, not just to Harvey Mudd, but to the Claremont colleges and just to college in general, especially when it comes to science and technology and math and engineering. And so I reached out to the local community, partnered with a group, Sacred Sisters, and we started holding an annual STEAM conference for girls of color. We'd invite them to campus, invite their parents to campus for a day of activity. And this was really so different, for me as a professor whose job it is not to create conferences necessarily, right? It's like teaching, research, some service, and I'm like, hey, I've got this big idea. I want to do this all-day conference. I want to bring girls in from all over Southern California. They're like, whoa, okay. So it took a lot of collaboration. I saw that. And so it was really great to be able to see these girls, but also to be able to host them on our campus. Our conference got talked about in Forbes on ways that we try to really increase awareness and opportunities for minorities in STEM. And so they did a feature on our girls, how we bring them to campus, the types of activities that we get to do with them. And so that's been a real treat for us as well. Each conference, so every April, there's a Saturday in April where we invite girls to our campus and we give them a couple of opportunities. There's an opportunity for them to meet women, scientists, mathematicians, engineers, right, the whole gamut, and hear them talk about the work that they do, right, at a level that's appropriate for middle and high school students. But talk about their work, right? Maybe it's design or engineering. And so really get the students excited about how the things that they're learning in the classroom right now, which can sometimes appear boring, right? What does that look in a real life job with real women? We also give them the opportunity to claim the space. I think this year we were asking them, what's your inspiration equation? What is it that inspires you? Because it's not just one thing, we're not just one-dimensional. So we wanted to have them talk about the things that inspire them, right, and how their academics can play into that as well. And then we give them these small time, I call these Claudia moments, because this sort of reminded me of my lunches with Claudia, where I'd be like, sit down and be like, okay, here's what I'm afraid of, Claudia. Here's what I'm not really sure. And she's like, okay, Talitha, you can do it. Here's the game plan. Here's what we're gonna do. And so for each of our women that come as mentors, we give them an opportunity to really talk to our girls, for them to have heart-to-heart questions. Sometimes their questions were like, well, if I take the AP courses, nobody's gonna invite me to prom. Right, okay, 15, 16-year-old, that's a maybe legitimate concern. And so then we have to say, well, let me tell you what the AP courses have done for my salary, you gotta sort of counter that, right? Or you don't want the guy who's not gonna ask you to prom just because you're smart. Like that's not the guy you need to go after, right? So have some of these heart-to-heart conversations that some of our girls don't wanna have with their parents, but they'll have it with some of our women mentors. The first year that we had the conference, so imagine you're bringing your, 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old girl, and we're like, thanks, parents. We're going to take great care. We'll see you at 3. And my parents were like, oh, I'm not leaving my baby girl on this college campus. I don't know these boys. I don't know. And so the parents they hung around. They just sat there. And we were just like, oh, we haven't planned anything for you guys, and please don't eat the food, because I really didn't order food for 50 extra parents. So we started a parent workshop, and this has really almost become, in some ways, the primary. After that first year, we said, well, parents need something to do. They're gonna stay. What can we do? So we invited counselors from the local Claremont high schools to come and run workshops for our girls' parents, to give them all the resources that they give to all their students, you know, top 12 questions to ask your daughter's guidance counselor, resources for summer research or summer activities, or how to get funding for college, right? So we gave the parents had concurrent sessions like the girls did. So much so that we got parents coming back year after year just for the parent session. And this was so critical. This is something that I didn't realize, because we get one day to sort of motivate and inspire, but the parents are on the front line all day, every day. And so we really had to give our parents resources. What do you say if your daughter comes to you and says, I don't know how to do this math problem? And most of my parents would be like, well, you know what, I don't either, and look at me, I'm still successful. You can make it in life without doing that calculus. And we're like, that's not what you say. Don't say that. Don't say that. You say, tell me what you know. What do you think? Let's go back a couple pages, you know, walk me up. And so even just like helping our parents, like, here's how you help your daughter. Here's how you help your son, right? Not by saying you don't know, even if you don't know. Don't say you don't know. Don't say it doesn't matter. Don't say you don't care. Just ask them questions. Have them try to present it to you, because sometimes they can solve it. I love this quote we got from a parent. I most enjoyed seeing the excitement and wonder in each young woman as they sat at the footstools of women who were practicing and actualizing their dreams. And so it was also amazing for parents to see how their daughters were being impacted and changed and motivated. I'd often get parents that came up and said, I wish I had this when I was in middle school. I wish I knew. It's down the street in Pasadena at JPL. We should invite her to keynote the conference that was inspired by my interaction with her, right? Duh. I mean, we'd been doing the conference for like 5 years before that thought even. It was like, oh, Claudia would be great. So I reached out to Claudia. This was like my least emotional picture. The other one was just, you know, this is like the most tame. I said, hey, Claudia, I'm doing this conference because, you know, you, and inspiration, and these girls, and the way you inspired me, I want to impact them. And so she came, and she talked about, you can't quite see it, it says the chase is on. This is for the Cassini mission she was working on. And she's pouring into these girls. And, you know, I'm just like, oh, I love you, and I love them, and you're so awesome. And so we got a chance to catch up. We hadn't been in touch for some years. And so it was really great to have that kumbaya, you know, that moment of being together. Claudia was also working on her own children's books. And I'm like, Claudia, it's not, I mean, you're busy. You know, you're doing a lot. Why are you writing kids' books? And she said, well, Talithia, we have to inspire the next generation. How are we going to get them excited if we don't do something that's giving back? She said, that's what you're doing with this program. And that's what I'm doing in these children's books. So she shared with me the books that she was working on: Windows to Adventure, Venus, the Morning Star, Which Mountain is the Greatest of All? "3 months before you die." That's a good excuse to decline. I remember when I saw her walked in, and I thought, she's so slim, you know, and she almost looked a little sick, and I thought, you know, and she looked like she would age. You know how we joke that black don't crack? And I'm like, well, you know, Claudia, looks like you're cracking. But when she got down there and she started speaking, y'all, she was so passionate, and she was just, you know, pouring into these girls. And she was walking, she had a cane. And I'm thinking, why does she have a cane? And it was because, you know, the chemotherapy had just started eating away. And I remember looking at her, and I was just thinking, it looks like she's sick, but she's here. And she's so happy to be here. And she's so happy to pour into these girls and just give her heart out for them. And so as you can imagine, I was devastated to see this, but I was so thankful that I got this time with her. Literally moments before she transitioned, I got to have this whole day of honoring her and letting her see that this conference is part of her legacy. It's how she touched me and how I now get to touch these girls. So I want to leave you with just 3 key points, really based off of just her life, but also our lives and the people we touch. I want to challenge you to live boldly. Live in the same way that Claudia lived her life, boldly, thinking about the folks who are coming behind us, right? Thinking about how we can make the world a better place for them, how we can make the world a better place internationally for those who are suffering all over the world in this moment. I want to challenge us to give boldly, right? Give of ourselves. The stuff that she was doing was outside of her work. It wasn't, nobody's paying her to do this. Nobody's paying her to write these books. Right? This extra work is really our way of giving back to the next generation. And then, of course, I'm going to challenge you to go boldly as you go forward. Thank you so much for this time today. Don't make me cry.
Made a wrong turn once or twice, dug my way out, blood and fire, bad decisions, that's alright. Welcome to my silly life. Mistreated, misplaced, misunderstood, misnowing it's so good, it didn't slow me down. Mistaken, always second guessing, underestimated, look, I'm still around. Pretty, pretty please, don't you ever feel like you're less than perfect. Pretty, pretty please, if you ever feel like you're nothing, you are perfect to me.
Parallel Man. I think we're running out of time, so I'm going to go a little faster here. But Parallel Man is the project that I've worked the hardest on in my life. It's a story about parallel universes and an adventure across them. I'm going to show you the trailer for that real quick.
back. I'll tell you, this is inspiration every single year, and Dr. Williams, just amazing. Loved hearing from her and her inspiration, and I think that's what this is all about, is taking what's here on stage, what's here live today, and putting it into your own life, and taking something that you're going to think maybe wasn't that interesting when you first heard about it, but it just blossoms. And I think, I'll tell you, cybersecurity scares me to death. Brian Seeley with us, and you saw him first off this morning, but you scared me a little bit. Is that what I'm supposed to happen?
Whoops. I mean, you're a weather guy. I'm scared of tornadoes, so we both have something in common there.
I'm scared of not having a computer that will show a tornado if somebody hacks me, you know?
Right. So, yeah, there is things to be scared about, but you don't have to worry about nation states, and if you take reasonable precautions, you can sleep at night. I can sleep at night, and I know way more of the scary things that are out there. So it's don't panic, but take and drill it, or you can take it to a electronics recycler. There's a lot of ways to do it, but you don't want to just throw a computer away without managing that hard drive. That's like throwing away your old address book and your old checkbook without shredding the paper.
Right.
You wouldn't do that, but the hard drive is that for you. You need to get rid of it properly.
Well, and as sensitive as we are for environmental, I mean, there are tons of places where you can take, you know, your computers and whatever, and have them disposed of properly. I'm concerned that somebody's not going to just take my hard drive and hang it out, like who cares about the weather guy, I would imagine. But anyway.
Well, that's the thing. A lot of people don't know what is valuable. Yeah, sure, you might not have Bitcoin, or you might not have a whole bunch of access to secret or classified information, but your identity is worth something as is. So if they can pretend to be you, they can learn things about you, email your friends, you can be used as a jumping off point. So don't be so quick to dismiss that.
And in our business, in the news business, we do stories about it all the time, about people who lose their identity and how difficult. It's a nightmare to get your life back.
It really is.
You know, your savings can be wiped out, as you said. It's just it's brutal.
A good tip for that is shop online with a credit card only. Never shop with your debit card. The reason why is credit cards, you're not liable for any of the purchases and they'll take it off. But if it's a debit card, it comes right out of your account. And even if you get it back, it might take a long time. They're not immediately crediting your account with that out of, benefit of the doubt. So never use your debit card for that. You can use any sort of credit or prepaid credit card.
I'm so glad that this is going to be on tape and just forever on this channel with the CI Week, so that I can go back and take the notes again.
Or you can email me too.
Okay, good. And by the way, I mean, so where can people get help? I mean, what is your system of helping these folks?
Well, usually I encourage people to learn how to help themselves in terms of looking online. So you go to Google and just type in the question you have. If you think your question is too specific, you're wrong. Yeah. You can type in the fat guy from the show from the 90s, who is his mother, and it'll probably guess it accurately. They're really, really smart, and they know what you're basically talking about through context. So ask the question. Find other people who've asked the question rather than taking the lazy step of going, Mom, where's my socks? If I have to get up and find something for my kids that's in the same room they are and that I'm not in, we're having problems.
Yeah. My wife says the same thing about me now, that our kids are gone, What do you mean you can't find the ketchup? It's right in the refrigerator, right where I told you. It's personal stuff there, sorry. So, but you also made it very topical about, things that are happening with Russia and Ukraine right now.
Right.
Where this is, we're all concerned about where's our future going and how much of war and what's going on, how much of that is not just on the ground but above and into cyberspace, and how do you worry that this maybe isn't some sort of a hack on our life?
As common as it was, warfare 150 years ago or 100 years ago was men standing in a line, marching towards each other like idiots. Like no one's hiding. It's like, I'm going to wear red, you're going to wear blue, and we're going to go at each other. Like, what is it, chess? You didn't have to
right into your guns.
You didn't, right. And I have a sharp, pointy part on the stick, and but that's how it was. Cybersecurity is now, and cyber attacking is part of the deal, because we all have that infrastructure, and we can't. No one's in the Stone Age anymore. Everyone has internet. It's now an attack surface. So whether you like it or not, that's the rules we have to play by. You can say, I'm no longer moving forward with technology. I'm never getting a cell phone. Fax machine is it for me. And you will be stubborn all the way to the point everyone's panicking.
It was inspiring though, but because it makes you think, okay, I've got to go check this. I got to make sure that, and I'm not, believe me, I click on dumb stuff. Our company has phishing programs like crazy where they send it out to us to try to catch us, and I've been the idiot. Where it's like
we all have
red flags.
I had a conference where there was 30 CEOs in the room, but in the months in advance, I spent texting and phishing all of them, so that during the presentation we got to a slide and said, out of 30 CEOs, 27 failed, and here's a folder with your results. Yep. And that's when they figured out that they were the 30 CEOs. And really knew a lot about how long did it take you to find this? I was like 3 or 4 hours. And I asked the other guy, I said, you're a registered independent, but your wife is a registered Republican. Does that cause any problems at home? And instead of going how I thought it was gonna go, he said, my wife has, she's a very opinionated woman. And I immediately got the job.
Well, those are lessons though. I mean, and those are real-time, real thing lessons. And you feel embarrassed, if something, obviously, but I'd rather feel embarrassed than feel completely out of my life, that I have no control.
Part of the message that I was trying to give was, you don't have to be embarrassed. Embarrassed is like, oh, I'm out of the group. I should feel shame for not knowing what other people know. None of us would know all this. Someone had to learn it first.
Right.
So let's wipe the slate clean. Let's ask questions of each other, show each other stuff that we're supposed to know and supposed to do to make everyone better, because there are cybersecurity experts who don't know everything, me included. I mean, I keep dating girls.
Kids about fresh water and used her work to create the first 360-degree virtual tour in Florida's underwater caves. Jennifer currently lives aboard a 42-foot sailboat, traveling around the world, producing photojournalistic stories about marine science and conservation.
Forest and looking at the impact of climate change on this. And you don't have a science story or an editor, sometimes it can feel like, what's even the point of bringing my camera? A million other photos of Arches National Park have been taken, so why would I bring that? I figured my photos didn't have a purpose. And in conservation photography and photojournalism, usually your work is fueled by this purpose of, communicating conservation and science. I didn't have that. But what I realized was that purpose in photography is greater than having a paid assignment and an editor. And starting to take photos again made me feel more whole. And interestingly, this image that I took at Arches bears us in places like Utah, Montana, Colorado, or Wyoming. And freediving alone is not safe. And so I serendipitously met up with a friend of 10 years and now my partner, Ian, who is pictured here in Jenny Lake in Wyoming. And there were Thor, and we started to go up in elevation. And one morning we woke up and there was snow on our wetsuits and our boots were frozen solid. So you can see Ian here thawing the boots in glacial water, which made them just kind of pliable enough to be able to put on your feet. So frozen booties in hand, we hiked 6 miles to a lake recently formed by this landslide. In 2006, basically, part of this mountain started collapsing, and it's called Crystal Peak. And over the next, had to go back the next day, wake up and do it again, but in reverse this time. So the next morning, we power walked back out without our bags and sang to scare the bears away for another 6 miles. And after we slipped into our wetsuits while standing next to fresh wolf tracks in the mud, this is what it looked like when we dipped our heads into the freezing water. From my journal on this day, on October 10th, day 2 of hiking into Crystal Lake. In the teens in the morning and frost on everything. Made the hike without gear in 2.5 hours again. Lake was gorgeous, but only 5 degrees Celsius, and our hands didn't last long at all. Hiked the 6 miles out with all the gear again and somehow made it out before sunset. If you're wondering what the hike looked like, this is what I looked like carrying all the gear. I think the picture after this, my eyes are closed and I'm making some very miserable expression. So it was definitely worth it. You can see here I have my fins clipped up over my right shoulder and then a can of bear spray clipped off to the front just in case the singing and loudly shuffling your feet didn't keep them away. So during this time, as a photographer, you know, to stay relevant, you kind of have to often share your work on Instagram. And I
said, ooh, I'm drowning in the night. Oh, and I'm like this, you're the one I trust. I'm running out of time, 'cause I can see the sun light up the sky. So I hit the road in overdrive, baby. Since it is cold and empty, no one's around to judge me. I can see clearly when you're gone. And I said, ooh, I'm blinded by the lights. No, I can sleep until I feel your touch.
So the opening video in that reel was from a spring just outside Salt Lake City, actually. So there's all of these amazing bodies of water in the West that, you know, I never knew about before I started going out there and would love to go back and work on a little bit more. But this particular spring is called Horseshoe Spring, and as you can see, there's no one else who's really that excited about swimming in these. It's just me. So I'm here, this tiny little blob on the right side, and the water was actually too murky to take pictures underwater. So Ian put up the drone and filmed while I swam in this spring. And what I kind of learned from this whole experience too is that in photography, just like in life, sometimes you really just have to shift your perspective. But I also understand that you don't have to travel thousands of miles across the country to go on an adventure or to tell stories. So before the pandemic, for the past about decade, my work has largely focused on Florida's freshwater springs, which were right in my backyard when I lived in North Florida. And they're winter months, so they lack a true blubber layer like seals and whales. Paywall academic journal. So also, you know, we can take pretty pictures of manatees, but it's also important to show the reality of what's happening beneath the surface. This photo here is the vegetation's disappearing, especially in the Indian River Lagoon. So the type of photography that I do helps communicate these issues in a way that draws people in. One of the things that initially got me interested in pursuing photography was, you know, documenting the springs. I was working on my PhD at the University of Florida, and going to the springs was kind of my happy place during the stress of grad school. I'm always more relaxed and creative when I'm in the water, and you know, going to the ocean, ironically, in North Central Florida is not that close. It's kind of an hour and a half to each coast. And so the springs kind of became my haven. And experimenting with photography on my own kind of helped me develop my own style and, you know, develop my eye. I learned photography through underwater photography. So I took a lot of really terrible pictures at the beginning. And so being able to swim around and just take photos for myself was, you know, was really nice for developing how I shoot now. And also during this time, I accidentally documented the decline of the last healthy springs in Florida. So this is one of the Blue Springs in January 2017, and this is the same exact place. You can see the logs in January 2018, and this was a year later in 2019. So the reasons for the decline in the ecosystem are really complex, but they basically have to do with published in papers about the decline in the vegetation. And as scientists, we would say there's a statistically significant decrease in the amount of vegetation, which, okay. But photos communicate this in a way that words and numbers cannot, and that's with emotion. Like, how do you feel when you see the grass disappear? You feel something, right? And that's why photos are really powerful. So I began to realize the power of photography to help connect people with the springs. So I was doing this research, but also with photos, I realized how many more people I could talk to and engage in the conversation, because what the people in Florida do impacts our water. So we need to teach people about the springs. Not only statistics, but also vegetation and grasses can be a hard sell for bringing people into the issue. You know, maybe people don't care as much. But turtles, who rely on the disappearing grasses, just like manatees, are a really good way to get people to care. And so these are river cooters. They're kind of the most charismatic and plentiful turtle in the springs. And as I became more immersed in the springs community and spent so much time in the water, like the number of hours just spending time in the water, like I don't even know how many hours, but like immersed in this crystal clear water just because it's magical, but also to do science. I met Dr. Jerry Johnson, who is a professor at Santa Fe Community College in Gainesville. And he created the Santa Fe River Turtle Project, which went from something that he created with one of his students to a community of 200 people who study the turtles in North Florida. Not scientists, local people, students at the community college who have never done science before, everyone. And he wants to change this misconception that science is only for scientists and break down learning in school. So in Florida, I started reading what the state standards are at different levels in education and found that in 5th grade, it was the time that they learned about the water cycle. And so I found the 5th grade science books and looked through, and I found one page about the water cycle in the science book and nothing about the spring specifically. So I set out to change that. And kind of my thinking behind it was, what would happen if every student in Florida had the chance to swim in a spring? How would that change our relationship with our water moving forward? And what would happen if we put cameras in their hands? So I partnered with enthusiastic teachers who helped make this program a reality. And as part of my dissertation research, I brought local students out to the springs to swim and take their own underwater photographs. They can look at photos of the springs, they can look at my photos, they can look at videos, but for them to actually experience it can change something in them. I did a formal study bit, so they got to see firsthand that they were part of the story and share their part of the story with the rest of the community. So I'm also a cave diver, much to my parents' and family's chagrin. And this is me on the left with my dive buddy, Leah, on the right. And I really wanted to bring the kids from the springs. When you look down into a spring, there's a really dark, the kids call it like I swim over the deep, dark part, which means that's where it goes down to the aquifer. So there's like a tunnel where you swim down in. And I wanted them to experience the aquifer as well. But as you can see here, there's a lot of specialized gear and training that goes into this. And so I wasn't gonna like suit up a 5th grader in one of these and shove them in the cave with me. So I created the first 360-degree virtual tour of the Floridan aquifer. So think Google Street View, but in an underwater cave. So you can go through and click through and swim through the passageways of the aquifer with me as if you're there. As you can see here, it's a regular DSLR camera, but in an underwater housing. I had a special piece. I worked with the chemistry department. They had a metal machine shop at the University of Florida, and I went in and told the guy what I needed to make, and he made me that very special. And then the spring water is on the left. So this particular, paddling, and this was the first time that they chose to think outside, and focused on the next generation. And I want to share with you the trailer for the film today. Oh, here's some behind the scenes of us filming too. You can see me, and this is what it usually look like over here. And then you can see the 3 girls over there, and Ian filming in the middle.
Did you guys see that red spider coming in? This is the first time I've been out in the actual wilderness in a while.
It's beginning to feel more like a home to me, honestly.
Close my eyes in the middle of a city night. Close my eyes and I'm underneath the southern lights. Close my eyes and my heart.
Hi, my name is Ava.
Hi, I'm Erin. I'm Mallory, and I've lived in Florida my whole life. And I haven't been to a lot of the places we've gone this week.
Close my eyes and I'm halfway home. Take me home.
I answered actually ended up resonating with a huge number of people, and I was overwhelmed by the response to it. And what I said was that I felt like I quit science after doing a PhD, but now I understand the value in my work as a science communicator instead of feeling bad for abandoning a sort of more traditional path of getting your PhD and staying in academia and not abandoning it. But now I see that science and communication are not separate, and communication is actually an essential part of science. And if we leave that part out, we're not completing the full scientific process. So making this choice in sweatshirt, and they have really big claws, and they're not very, I could barely hold one. And the reason why she was shoving puff things down her sweatshirt and in her sweatshirt pockets is because the baby puffins come out of the nest, the parents are already gone, and then they get stuck in the town. It's the only inhabited town in these islands. And they don't have enough lift to like fly off the ground, which is why, again, they're throwing them off a cliff, which looks very violent, but this is what they need. Their wings are meant for swimming underwater. And so they need a lot of extra lift to get back out. See, they're swimming not only just learning to swim, but swimming like in their clothes and also providing for their families because a lot of them are single mothers. So one of the most important skills in journalism that I think we don't teach enough is listening. You know, you learn how to interview, you learn how to take a picture, you learn how to tell a story, but we don't always learn about listening, and you cannot underestimate the power of listening. It is not taught enough, and it's a skill that I think a lot of us could master a lot more, especially when we tell stories, when we go into a place that is not our home. So here, I do not speak Swahili, I do not live there, so going in with too many preconceived notions of what the story is can really impact how the story comes out in the end. And so we have to really think about going in what the story is to these people, because it's their story, it's not ours. Like, you can't just go and shove your camera in someone's face and expect to get a good story. You have to spend the time building the trust and getting the respect of people in these communities, and then show them. Like, I'm showing her pictures on my phone of what she looked like over the past couple days, and she's laughing and she's so excited, because, you know, maybe she doesn't get to see a lot of pictures of herself, and she looks like frankly, like a badass in that picture. And so I think she's really excited about what she looks like. And sees how she's being shown to like the media. So when you're doing a story, it's important to also think about how you can give back to these communities, whether it's by helping share the NGO's work or helping them get new booties or new knives or something, or also, spreading the word about what they do and helping inspire other women to go into sponge farming. So we can measure impact in a lot of different ways, but I think that inspiring the next generation is one of the best and lasting impacts we have. One of these is not me. That's not me in the middle. It's not me when I was a little kid. But I was far away in a remote island from Baja to French Polynesia. I love learning from the people who so graciously give me their time, share their homes, their stories, meals, and their trust. And I'm really endlessly inspired by all these people and grateful that my camera leads me to them and allows me to learn from them, because part of storytelling is not just telling the stories, it's about learning along the way. And whatever your story is, I would say to go boldly and tell it, because the world wants to hear. We are listening. That's it.
Alex, how are you today?
Oh, I'm doing great. I have to say, it's honestly a little intimidating to have watched all these other speakers and how.
Oh, no. Because let me tell you, I've seen a lot of your work, and this is so much fun with Netflix, the Blown Away program. I want to talk about that in just a little bit. But your program's coming up this afternoon right after our lunch break. Now, I don't want to give anything away, but the production crew said you have like 75 slides.
There's going to be, I always like to go through a lot. You know, I've been, before doing the series, I've been kind of making this weird work with glass and other disciplines for like 20 years. So I'm going to try to talk a little bit about the way that I...
Stephanie, but then it gets kind of competitive.
It's, you know, it was weirdly not that different than the rest of a life as an artist and a maker. It reminded me a lot of art school, you know, like they'll give you these kind of briefs or these prompts, and then you have a certain amount of time, and if you run out of time, you don't get it. You know, everybody, like that fear of showing up empty-handed is something that every, you know, art student or even a professional, like there's a gallery exhibition, you know, there's hard deadlines. Sometimes stuff doesn't work out. So a lot of that stuff is kind of built into the process. But yeah, of course, it's like there's the added thing of the audience size. You know, you don't realize it at the time, but then you go back and watch yourself and you're like, oh my God, there's
a lot of people
watching this. Yeah.
And especially during pandemic era. But it's inspirational to me. And so not to go too much into my world here, but I loved art as a
showing up really because they saw it on the series. You know, a lot of people like me, I didn't grow up being like, one day I'm going to make glass art. Like that's not really a thing that's on the menu of art careers to choose from that most people know about it. You kind of fall into it. And I think it's an interesting shift that there's more visibility, there's more young people that might be, that are getting in touch and saying like, how do I do this career? You know, what do you do to be successful?
Well, the color of my hair gives away that I'm a man of a certain age, okay? I think the first time I saw a glassblower was probably on a field trip somewhere to like a, you know, to
material as a whole.
Well, you don't want to fence yourself in either. I mean, in your world, last year we had a violinist who came in, and I thought that was fantastic. I mean, but I love that it's different genres, different things to think about.
Oh, yeah. This is kind of my favorite type of, not that there's a ton of things exactly like this, but when it's kind of mixed disciplines and people from different backgrounds, because like, you know, I got to see a bunch of really cool speakers today. I'm super interested to see there's a person here who's a stunt person.
Yes, yeah.
And I'm super interested to see that one. I've always kind of wondered what that.
But to have that here and to be able to broadcast it now, you know, through worldwide, anybody can watch this and rewatch it. By the way, don't forget that. If you've missed anything, you can go back and rewatch this later. But I got to say, from somebody who's just an Iowa kid who grew up here, you know, this is pretty cool.
It is cool. I've never been here before. This is my first time in Iowa at all, and it's for this like international stage, so it's very, very cool.
If you people see Alexander maybe tomorrow or tonight, I don't know how long you're going to be here, but, you know, impress him, okay? Make him want to come back. You know, we're not Philly, but we're Des Moines and West Des Moines. But we're so proud to have you here. I think this is just a big part of this program, that it's something that's so unusual.
Delicious food, eat some every day. Oh, we ride in the rodeo, roping steers and busting broncos, and we haven't had a bite to eat since dawn. We are hungry and we're dragging, but here comes the old chuck wagon with the vittles that we long for. Bring her on!
Now, I'm the U.S. Marshal. To soft drinks, I am partial.
And this popcorn's good.
My gosh, I say it be.
Now it's time for intermission, so let's all hit the trail and gather around the sweet bar where these goodies are on sale. Here. Now's the time for a bite of cheer. A tasty life where the price is right. Well, look at here, you'll dig this sight. The moment's handy for a piece of candy. Just name your brand, they're all so grand. Hey, what do you think of a nice cool drink? Or a big box filled with a popcorn thrill? Let your taste buds meet with an ice cream treat. Refresh yourselves, it's time to eat. So come on, folks, let's join the band as we all head for the refreshment stand.
Intermission time. Time that stretch you've been wanting. And best of all, time to take your pick from that scrumptious array of tasty treats waiting for you at the snack bar, where the popcorn's poppin', the cold drinks are sparkling, the hot dogs are sling, the coffee is steaming, and a luscious treasure of confectionery delights with ice cream and candy and so much more to tempt any taste is waiting for you now at the snack bar. You'll be notified in plenty of time when the next show is about to begin.
Hurry, step right.
for patrons. It's a supply depot for all sorts of good things, which people can get at the snack bar, like soft drinks.
Progress through education and industry has a new meaning today. To progress, we must win this war. To win this war, we must have machines and the brains to direct these instruments of warfare. We need the trained minds of millions to get more alcohol from the plentiful sweet potato than ever before. Many courses, like this automotive maintenance class, are given to women who learn to fill jobs vacated by men gone to war.
Hot dogs, the all-American favorite. Certainly we serve them, piping hot and full of flavor. Call for yours now.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby.
April 9th. Cheap Trick has a new album coming out April 9th.
It's refreshment time, and our refreshment stand is loaded with good things to eat. There's crispy, crunchy popcorn, and hot, delicious buttered popcorn, lots of candy, and frosty, refreshing cold drinks.
They plant a garden together, Henry Ford II and Benson. His first car, he called it a quadricycle. That's his wife, Clara. He began with an idea that most people thought wouldn't work, but he made it work. Time of isolation and distance. His life was a paradox. While his mechanical genius helped to change forever the lives of people everywhere, he sought to preserve in some permanent form a record of the world around him and his ever-widening interest in it. He collected buildings the way others collect stamps and put them in a village where time stands still. He assembled acres of machines and put them under cover in a vast historical museum. And early, he discovered the astonishing capacity of the motion picture camera to document for all time.
Stretch time. Time to refresh yourself and visit our snack bar. Got a yen for hot popcorn? Your favorite soft drinks are sparkling cold. The juicy Frank sizzling hot. There's delicious coffee, freshly brewed, and all kinds of ice cream and candy to tempt you. Showtime will be announced loud and clear to get you back to your car in time. So stretch your legs. Come to the snack bar now.
Hello there. Give the demonstration of my new invention, the Goodies Machine. The machine turns out delicious hot doggies one after the other. And thirst-quenching sodas also. Gives popcorn of the most tasty kind, plain unbuttered. Candy too, crunchy and dandy. Steaming hot coffee and ice cream.
I don't have any front steering, Joe. Check this rear steering, Dave. Yeah.
In use, the absence of front-wheel steering would hardly be noticed. Then they loaded the equipment they would need for their geological survey and boarded the rover for their first exploration.
Okay, we're moving forward, Joe. Roger.
They were headed toward...
But as a group, it blows my way. This is Jenny Adler, and you go by Jenny, right? Yeah. Okay, so I heard that while we were talking.
Yeah, Jennifer's very formal, you know.
Right, yeah, it is. But your talk is just so phenomenal to me because what else besides space do we have that's infinite? It's underwater.
Absolutely.
And it is so fascinating to me to see what you've done so far, and the amazing organisms, things that you've seen. And you were just one of our camera guys here that's with our production crew was talking to you about the 360 development of camera work. So there's a lot going on in your and that's what's with the International Women's Day just yesterday, and Talithia Williams here and her life story.
She's amazing.
She is, and it is she's an inspiration to me anyway. But after hearing her talk today, tears in my eyes thinking about every aspect of her digital and number world, and then taking it into the perspective of women and girls and inspiring them.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's your platform.
You can do it. Yeah, and having girls see themselves in these positions that they maybe otherwise wouldn't see themselves in. Right now, actually, at the Smithsonian, it just started this weekend, there are 120 statues of females in science.
I saw that.
Yeah, so I'm one of the statues.
If somebody doesn't look just like you, or if you don't see somebody that's similar to you, you kind of maybe disassociate yourself from being in that position. And that's what this is about. This is really putting it in perspective. I love this.
Yeah, seeing yourself in those shoes, or it's like or if you don't see like a position that you thought you could have. Like I didn't necessarily know that being a photographing at first, because we're going to be a statue. Like what?
Right.
Like okay. So that's kind of surreal. It's going to be kind of weird to see in person, but
well, and honestly, a lot of times when people are memorialized in a statue, it's like they're gone.
Gone.
I'm still here.
Yeah.
Well, your inspiration is going to go on much longer than that, but that's
midway through my PhD, which is a really convenient time to decide that you want to change what you're doing.
Oh, yeah.
Thankfully, I had a really supportive advisor and some other people who helped, bring the journalism into the science that I was doing, and I was able to take kind of half science and half journalism classes. But I went into it as hard ecology, and so
a lot of it obviously is on land, and you're doing the editing, and you're studying and doing all that.
Mm-hmm.
But how much do you spend on the water? How much time do you spend out on the ocean?
As much as I can.
Yeah, right.
I picked up kiteboarding during the pandemic, which was another good activity.
I think one of your profile pictures, is that a kiteboard that you have in front of you?
Oh, maybe. Probably.
Yeah,
it's neat to get to come here and see all the things that other people spend all their time thinking about.
You drove by a pond today.
I might.
Here, was that exciting?
I mean, maybe I should have brought my dry suit.
No,
you never know.
You don't want to go in that water. But for kids and people like us who are in the middle of our little country here with no water anywhere, that's an inspiration to us. I think that there are kids here that maybe wouldn't have had that trigger or that flip and think, hey man, I can be an oceanographer. I can go out and do whatever I want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so accessible to be able to get to even like the Great Lakes or the ocean and stuff now. Yeah. So yeah, I would encourage you, if you want to, even if you're in a landlocked state, to go out and try to jump in.
Rock and roll. Do some windsurfing too.
Kiteboarding, windsurfing too, sailing, whatever you want. Anything on the water.
I'm a weather guy. Wind. You caught me at wind.
Yeah, you got wind.
Jenny, thank you so much. So great to see you here. Thanks for being in Des Moines. I want to see this later on. This is going to be just something that will, I think, stick with all of us. So in this presentation that we've had over the last 13 years, this is CI Live 13. We've met them and get to talk with them. I've had a few pictures today. Earlier today, of course, we were talking to a cyber specialist. Brian was amazing, and his life story is just another addition to what he's doing today. You're going to find much more of that over the next couple of days. So please continue to stay with us and join us as we talked earlier with Alexander Rosenboom. He's actually going to be speaking in just a few minutes. He is the glass blower. If you saw the Netflix series Blown Away, he was spectacular in that. I didn't even know about him until I found out he was going to be here, so I had to watch that series. And I went through it, and it's like, how come I didn't see this during the pandemic? How did I not find this? This would have been a great thing to watch. His expertise and creativity is going to be just coming up here in just a little bit. And on top of that, we have music. We have country music specialists, stars. We have also, again, more of our NASA crew. And Tony Poston is the provost here of the DMACC West campus. And Dr. Poston, again, was a fighter pilot, but also involved with NASA even as we speak. So he has a lot of great connections. We got to thank him for getting all these people together, and yours truly for making the weather guy.
Alexander Rosenberg is a Philadelphia-based artist, educator, writer, and glassblower. In 2018, he was cast on the Netflix series Blown Away that turned up the heat on glass-blowing challenges and pushed him to creative extremes. He has a Master's of Science in Visual Studies from MIT and has been an instructor at the University of Arts in Philadelphia. He was named the 2020 Stephen Proctor Fellow at the Australian...
...is to kind of tell you some of the stories behind the projects. So that's kind of what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to go a little bit through kind of a lot of projects that I did leading up to going on to glassblowing on reality TV. And then I am going to talk about the projects that I did on reality TV. But I love showing this image of this kind of classic looking clear glasses that I've made to start off with, to talk a little bit about how I describe what I do. I like to talk about myself as a multidisciplinary artist with a studio practice based in glass. That's kind of a mouthful for like a guy who makes cups and bowls. The two things I think that are important to me about doing this stuff. these objects in particular, I don't really feel much ownership over them. It's more me looking at things that I've seen that were made in the past and trying to imitate them. And there's another thing that's really exciting to me about that. If you think about it, glass blowing is a literal recording of physical movement, right? And if I find something like this that's in a museum cabinet or on the page of a book, and I recreate it perfectly, I'm reenacting a series of movements that some maker, otherwise unknowable, has done sometimes hundreds or even thousands of years before. And for me, this impossible connection to somebody that I couldn't have otherwise known in the past is kind of at the root of my interest in the material. So talking about that, talking about connections through the past, a lot of my projects start with kind of a simple question or coincidence. In this case, I went to the Fogg Museum in Boston and I found this engraving of Benjamin Franklin. And you can see he's depicted in a funny looking fur hat. And so I just wanted to know, why is he wearing this funny looking fur hat? It turns out that when Ben Franklin went on a visit to Paris in the 1770s, they already knew him. He was like a celebrity. They knew who he was before he arrived. And the artist wanted to connect him. I sent it to a factory in China that specializes in making oil paintings that can do, it's really a high level of craft, you know. And the bread and butter, I think, of the time was making like novelty paintings, like, you know, a monkey smoking a cigar that looks like banana, or like dogs playing poker. But you could send them like a Renoir and get back a Renoir, like very, very highly skilled people. So I had this made into a real painting, and I hung it in a gallery. And there was a teeny tiny hole cut in one of the eyeballs of the painting and a tiny surveillance camera behind it. And so each time a person went to look at the painting, they themselves would be superimposed onto this monitor underneath another fur hat, kind of being unwittingly enlightened themselves. That's possible. This is another kind of serendipitous project. I was walking around Somerville, Massachusetts. I was in grad school at the time, and I found this house on the street that was radially symmetric. And again, like thinking back to that first slide and just like making glass all the time, every day, it changes the way you see the world. So I saw this house that was radially symmetric, and I said, maybe this would be the kind of house a glassmaker would make. You know, I'm concerned with keeping things on center and spinning them and having them be radially symmetric. So he was a flash of light from the center of this model, and it inverts, you know, where at once you were outside of a model looking in, suddenly you're kind of in an architectural side space looking out. That little window lines up with that architectural detail. So in my mind, it's as if you're transported to that site that he wanted to go to and able to see the view for a second. Now, the other thing about this is the flash happens really, really briefly. And this phenomenon called after image occurs. And so this is if you've ever sat in a dark room and set off the flash of a camera, for example, and you can close your eyes and see the image of the room burned onto your retina temporarily. So that's what happens. Everybody stands in that space. They get this image temporarily burned into their retinas. And they can close their eyes and all see the same thing, which again, in my mind, it's a little bit of a stretch, but it's like people sharing the same vision or a dream. So another thing that's kind of fun about glass making as a career is you get invited places and they want you to do glass. I'm always excited by that space, that like built-in performance space. And I'm always trying to figure out like something I can do with that other than just show up and do the thing. So in this case, I wondered, what would it be like if making glass made a song? This interface, does anybody here recognize this? Usually like hands. Okay, no, this is how long ago I've done this. If you were like a cool VJ in the early 2000s, you might have used this. It's called Max MSP, and it's like a simple visual programming language for people. It's a program for people that don't want to program, basically. What you're seeing is I have a webcam hooked up to this kind of color filtration thing, and it's following certain pixels in the frame. And those pixels go to corresponding XY coordinates, and those go to notes on a piano keyboard. The next step was wondering what that would look like written out as musical notation. And I found these people that were making software that was good at listening listening to those notes and turning it into notation. And so at kind of regular playable scale, this ended up being something that was about 10 feet tall by 4 feet wide. I've never shown it in a place that had a ceiling high enough for it. And you can see, I don't know if anybody here plays, but you can see it's kind of complicated. I had a recent student in a glass class who's a kind of experimental saxophonist, and he's promised that he has a band that's going to perform this for me, which is very exciting. The thing to me that's exciting about this, even though it is like a little bit of a reach, is that this tiny, simple object contained all of that extremely complex information. And of course, like the next step for me would be, can you reverse engineer that? Like, can you play that cup into existence by performing that piece? Maybe we'll see when the guy gets his band together. Last, like thinking about the skin of something going. So we're getting closer to present. Again, thinking about this idea of practice, right? Going back to something over and over again. It makes a lot of stuff. Like I just make a lot of glass. Even though some of these projects don't have that much of the material in them, there's this thing going on in the background, and I'm making all this. And one year I decided I'd like to know what that looks like. So I just saved everything. I just saved everything that I made for a year. Demonstrations, I was teaching a lot this time. And I was just kind of playing around with it in my studio. And finally, there was kind of a spotlight on it. I noticed a shadow, and I was like, oh, I can make a shadow by arranging these things. And I started arranging the glass until it was my portrait, reclining. But it only took me to Venice when I was a kid, and I saw this, and I think I was 10 or 11, and I saw this sculpture by Marino Moroni called Angel of the City. And as a kid, I was kind of like embarrassed and also curious looking at it. You can probably guess why. This was commissioned in 1947 by Peggy Guggenheim, and it was like super controversial at the time. And the 1947 people were like, ooh, I don't think we can have this in the museum. So the compromise, because it's out on the steps, it's in public, was that they decided to make the phallus removable. It could be unscrewed, and depending on who was coming to the museum. So I made this series of glasses that instead of, so glass has a lot of stress. It contracts as it cools down to room temperature, and different thicknesses cool at different rates. And those kind of differences in the contraction cause a lot of stress. So we have to do what's called annealing the glass. It's like we bring it down slowly in an oven that allows those different parts to kind of equalize and slowly get down to room temperature. This glass, I didn't allow it to do that. When it was done and it was at this annealing temperature, which is about 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit, I just dropped it in water. And dropping it in the water, it fragments the surface of the glass, but it also contracts it such that it's like puzzle pieces held together, like as close as I could make to the note that those strings play. The thing that kind of prompted it was that at that place on the piano keyboard, when the hammer hits a string, it's not one string, it's 3 strings. And one's a little flat, one's a little sharp, one's dead on. Like that's what kind of sounds right to the human ear. When I was pulling apart that really old piano that had been played for a long time, it was disgusting. I pulled up the keyboard and there was just like human grossness, like fingernail clippings and hair and like little dust and things like that. And I was getting ready to take the shop vac and get rid of it. And then I was like, wait a minute, that's valuable. Like you can only produce that by playing a piano for 103 years. So I made this, there's a piece of glass from the 17th century. There's actually 2 of them in the collection at Corning Museum that are reliquaries, and they contain like little bits of skin to what's in that image. It's an optical illusion. This is like a child's optical illusion, but it's produced by having binocular vision. And I wanted to figure out a way to make a photograph of this using a camera, a monocular tool. So this is not photoshopped. It's not altered in any way. It's just like a straight up photograph. And the way that I produced it was with glass, making this object. It's kind of gross. I don't know why. We referred to it as the finger turd when it was in my studio. But glass has visible to the eye, but it will make a shadow that's visible. And there's a piece of sheet glass leaning against the wall that's inscribed with text. The candle burns down. It illuminates one line of text at a time. And it reads what I hope it will read on my tombstone. It says, Alexander Rosenberg, he tried. People at home probably can't hear the laughter. There's laughter. At this point, I'm living in this house. It's like a crumbling pile of bricks in Philadelphia, in what was at the time kind of an edgy neighborhood. People would try to. I lived near an abandoned coal power plant. It's now being turned into like luxury houses, but at the time it was this abandoned coal power plant, and the neighborhood's kind of dark. And my block was like a block that was popular, like drop stolen, abandoned cars with no wheels on them. Is like it was a nice dark place to do stuff like that. So I was thinking a lot about working with public space, trying to put light back there. And I made this neon heart. It goes up in my window at the top of my house, so you can actually see it from I-95 or from the Delaware River. And I hook it up to me when I sleep at night, and it blinks on and off with my heartbeat, so people can kind of. I asked my doctor to look at it with a telescope. She was unwilling to do so. This one, I'm not going to spend too long on it because I can kind of talk about it for a while, and I really want to make sure that we get to the reality TV stuff. But there's some really interesting, I've always been interested in kind of alternative economies, and there's a big pipe making scene in glass in general, but in Philadelphia too specifically. And as I was kind of learning more about it, I was trying to understand like why there was so much money in this particular area. Like people were making these pipes that were fabulously expensive, and there were also a lot of support for these artists to kind of develop this work. And it turns out there was kind of a deeper relationship to some other things. It had to do with as cannabis was becoming legal recreationally state to state, but not federally. The banks didn't want to take the money, and armored cars wouldn't carry it. So there was like this giant cash surplus, and to deal with it, like the community created this kind of alternative economy where the bullion was glass pipes. It was something that everybody agreed was valuable, that would hold the value for a long time, and that they could kind of use to store and move this money around.
Well, hello and welcome. This is your host, Ken D. Foster. Welcome to the Voices of Courage show today. Today, we're talking about life mastery, what it really means to master your life. Of course, mastering your life always starts with mastering your thoughts, mastering your mind, because the mind is over our emotions, emotions over actions, actions over results, and results are over our destiny. So today, the show is all dedicated 100% to helping you step into the most brilliant part of you, whatever that soul part of you is that's out there, that's waiting to speak its truth, speak its wisdom, speak its understanding, that part of you. That's the part I'm talking about. To be able to step into that, and as a result of that, to be able to master all areas of your life. Albert Einstein once said, "All I want to know are the thoughts of God. The rest are details." What was he talking about? He was talking about tuning into this super conscious mind, that place where when we get still, we hear that little still voice that guides us with our intuition to make the right choices at the right time. And as a result of that, start to live a life of mastery. Now, easy said, easy talked about, not so easily done. But fear not or worry not. My guest today is going to guide you with some easy to follow ideas and strategies to step into your life mastery. And I'm going to introduce her in just a second, as soon as I get back from the break. We'll be right back.
Here's an important message from the Diabetes Solution Center. Diabetics understand all
Well, welcome back to the segment here. So today we're talking about life mastery, and I'd like to introduce my guest to you. Her name is Sherry Fernandez, and Sherry is a individual, has a new book out. It's called Life Mastery: Personal Progression Towards an Infinite Potential. She is a speaker, she's a teacher, she's a mentor, and Sherry and her husband Ken are actually a rags to riches story. They found success not only financially, but in each areas of life mastery: spiritually, physically, relationship, education, motivation, money, lifestyle, and character. Sherry, it's so good to have you. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ken. Glad to be here. Glad I can talk about some of the concepts I love so much.
Well, I'm glad you can too, because I think at this point in time, a lot of people are switching gears or switching paths or wondering what I need to do to have more joy, happiness, and love in my life, even though I got lots of money, or maybe I have no money, but they're still looking for that. So what is the basic premise of life mastery?
Well, the premise, which I don't think is necessarily, maybe premise is too mild a word, a basic principle of life is that we are happy when we're moving forward. And while people may doubt that once in a while when I say it that way, we're moving forward towards infinite potential. When you talk about it's not, when I'm stuck, I'm not happy, right? When I can't move forward, when I feel stuck, I feel backsliding, I am unhappy. The opposite is also true. If we're moving towards our infinite potential, we're happier. And so that is the starting concept of life mastery and the importance of always moving forward and looking.
Well, I'm wondering, you have a new book out, so I want to ask you about that in a minute. But why should people care about life mastery? What's the importance of this?
Well, again, it's happiness. Be happy for one thing. It's not happy to not be moving forward. Sometimes it can be somewhat comfortable in an unhappy way, but because when we're moving forward, we're happier. When we're setting goals, you think about the days when you feel like a slug and you're not getting anything done. Those aren't happy days. When we're moving forward and making accomplishment and we feel like we're living a little better, we're happier. But sometimes I think people want that, but they don't know where to start. And that happens a lot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, I couldn't agree with you more. Let me just talk about the book. Let me just jump into that real quick. Why did you write the book Life Mastery?
You've got to do that. And I also felt really, a lot of the things we do, the most important are, I think, divinely inspired. And I felt like I was divinely inspired to write the book. And also the other thing that was happening was I was still seeing clients, but there were no speakers 2020. So there was no speaking opportunities. The workshops I did them on virtually. I didn't like it. I like to work with people in person, preferably. And then I had all this information. I'm not getting any younger in my head. I thought, I was like,
nailed it. Anyway, this one I did not make so well. I wish I could go back and make this one better. But it was, and this is kind of related to some of the things that I'm doing in the studio these days. They were asking about, you had to make lighting, and I wanted to make this lighting kind of for Anthropocene, like, for kind of environmental problems that we can anticipate. So I'm thinking about when resources that we burn for natural electricity, run out. This would be like you could seamlessly change over, put some candles in there, still keep going, no problem. This one, they had a sommelier as the guest judge, and she hated it, I'll tell you that. But I don't drink. Like I'm in recovery, so my idea of like what makes drinking good is the most possible. So I made the biggest decanter. It's pretty huge, and I was thinking about. This was a collaborative effort with Janusz, who I was kind of poking fun at before. He was a great guy to work with, and they asked us to do something about duality, like two different sides of a coin. So we had things that were supposed to be heavy that were quite light, and then we had things that were supposed to be light that were quite heavy, and they do this like impossible balancing act in the middle of the room. I will tell you also, we're getting really close to the end, but I will tell you also that this was not held together super securely, and they left it overnight, and it got totally destroyed. You know, they were upset. This one, we were supposed to do something with glass flowers, and I was looking at the work of my partner at the time, Dr. Elaine Ayres. She writes about this. She writes about materials that resist collection. Particularly in the 19th century, and she wrote about this phenomenon called the disappointment of the tropics, where like people would see these glass houses in Europe with everything artificially in bloom, and then they'd go down to the tropics and find stuff like brown and wilting, and it was kind of this at odds with their expectation of the place. So this is about people would use this mini glass house called a Wardian case to try to bring these very, very delicate specimens like orchids back to Europe, and they rarely made it. It was like, 1 out of 20 would make it back. So the idea of this kind of wilting, flowerless plant inside of this vessel. This was the one that sent me home, unfortunately. It was, they asked us to think about a body in motion, and I was thinking about, I was actually thinking about John Cage and his 4 minutes and 33 silent performance. He was around MIT also, and the story is he was looking for an anechoic chamber to study in. Anechoic chamber is a room that reflects no sound. You've probably seen there's foam cut out everywhere, and you go in and it feels really weird. You're used to having sound to kind of orient yourself in space. So they would go in there, it's like when I was invited to a Christmas special, I thought they were just referring to a holiday special. And I showed up, it was very Christmassy indeed. So they were asking about what's the best gift you ever got? I had a grandfather who I was pretty close with who used to kind of show me the stars and planets through a telescope. So I made this kind of a model of an orrery, the glass model of the solar system. And to the left, they were asking about holiday meals. And you can see, I get invited every year to my best friend's, it's called a glögg party. It's like a Swedish smorgasbord around Christmas time. And they have this sour, stinky herring. And I wanted to do something kind of humble. So I made this kind of chopped up fish in a jar. And then finally, the very last one, they were asking us to make, kind of design a set of Christmas ornaments, which I have to say I was kind of dreading, but I was thinking about sublimation. It's like in really cold places where water goes directly from ice to vapor, no liquid in between. And I wanted to kind of make that gradient in the tree. And I think you can see these are some examples of the little baubles, but on the top was a part that was exciting to me. It's that glass is unannealed. It's just
The Willis Automotive guest experience is all about you. That's why we introduced Buy Your Way, so you can start your vehicle purchase from anywhere.
And continue your purchase process here with one of our friendly consultants.
Or here, while having your morning coffee.
Schedule a test drive and gain hands-on experience from one of our knowledgeable delivery coordinators.
Or schedule it here, in your driveway.
Buy Your Way, your new favorite way to buy a new or pre-owned vehicle.
Only at Willis Automotive and willisauto.com.
just get a show of hands who doesn't know who I am? That's all right. Okay, yeah, what's your name? Tiffany. Okay, wonderful. Now, Tiffany, don't feel bad. That's okay. I'm sure when you saw me, you're like, oh, the guy from 2.5 Men. Anyway, I'll just explain a little bit, Tiffany, about what I do, what these things are, and why I'm here. I've written a lot of zombie books. That's sort of how I sort of made my name. And what I started doing initially, the reason I wrote my first zombie book is called The Zombie Survival Guide. It's sort of how to survive a zombie attack. And the reason I wrote it, the reason I sat down to write it was I was just legitimately scared of zombies. You know, to me, they sort of defied all the rules of monster movies. And, you know, to every monster movie up until then started with sort of some young, hot teens and a token black guy. And this was the 80s, and that's just how we were back then. And they would go somewhere. They'd make a conscious choice to separate from the rest of the human race and go somewhere isolated and get killed. Zombies were different. Zombies came to us, and zombies destroyed everything, and that scared the crap out of me. And so I thought, well, what if there was a real zombie plague? How would I survive, really? Forget in a movie, because in the movie, you know who's gonna die and you know who's not. You know, if there's a good-looking alpha male dude with a stubble and, you know, and he's sort of cool, you know he's gonna live. Well, that was never me. How would I survive? So I sat down and I wrote this book in the 90s. And as I started writing it and researching it, because I have maintained them, and that's what's so critical about the times we're living in right now. Because we all live in a very safe, comfortable, fun country, which all came together at the end of World War II. You know, they were all
science, making sure that your computers are safe, you name it. We've covered a lot of topics today, but back here in Des Moines and here in West Des Moines, but also in our Des Moines community, we have a lot of exciting things going on with Des Moines University, and this is just a pleasure to really meet you for the first time and talk a little bit. This is Dr. Angela Walker-Franklin, and she's the CEO and also the president of DMU, and I am so thankful that you're here. There's a lot happening in your world and in our world because of the move of DMU. I'd love to hear more about it.
Sure.
The new campus.
Thank you. It's a wonderful opportunity to be able to share a little bit of our story. We've been at this since 1898. We're 123-year-old health sciences university, founded in Des Moines, Iowa, and we have the wonderful opportunity to reimagine medical education. So we are relocating our campus from a 20-acre plot of land downtown Des Moines to 88 acres of land down the street from here in West Des Moines. Wonderful opportunity to reimagine medical education and to build the health sciences university of the future.
Well, and this area, for those who don't know, the DMACC West Campus is just on the southwest side of West Des Moines, but there's a huge area that has opened up here over the years. So I've been here 30 years, but it's really amazing how it's a perfect campus area for you folks, and you had to move somewhere to grow.
We were landlocked. We were not in a position that we could even add any one new degree program. So we have a university with 3 colleges. Our oldest and first is our College of Osteopathic Medicine. We have a College of Podiatric Medicine and Surgery, and a College of Health Sciences. So we have 8 degree programs, now 9, because now that we can start growing, our faculty are beginning to imagine what are the next new degree programs. So when we relocate to West Des Moines, we will already have added a PhD program in biomedical sciences, as well as an occupational therapy doctorate degree. We always had a PT degree. Right. We are now able to add occupational therapy. So we are growing now, finally, for the first time in decades, to be able to add just one new degree program. An enterprise that's been just forming now with, artificial intelligence, with telemedicine, augmented virtual reality, all the new things that are happening, new devices that we needed to stay current, but not just meet a standard, but be able to surpass that, to reimagine how do we train future health professionals? We're not doing it the same way now that we did 50 years ago, but what does the future say about where does health sciences education go? So we are reimagining.
And it really is. It's fascinating. Yeah. And to have a growth area to make this happen for Des Moines and for Iowa, for the country is
we're
fantastic.
We're so excited. We actually just were on a tour this morning, bringing our deans out to the site to see the learning studios and the simulation labs. We even have a telehealth simulation area, so that we are bringing to the design of the new campus all the new technology that will be there for our students to learn to train to deliver care in a different world.
Well, that's another whole new world that's really opened up, especially during the pandemic.
Exactly. Right. We learned a lot about how to deliver care more efficiently because we were confined.
Right.
And our students, is a different skill set to being able to treat and a patient from a screen.
Right.
Well, from a telehealth.
It's a learning avenue for both of us, on this side and on the doctor's side.
Exactly.
Thank you, Dr. Walker Franklin, for being here today. I appreciate you so much. Love having to be a part of your afternoon. Thank you for being out here. I can't wait to see what happens. Fall of next year?
2023, we should be there.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
We still have a lot more for you, of course, this afternoon. We're going to take you back down to the main stage. Enjoy our CI Live.
To courageously reach their impossible goals.
Thank you. So now that I have your attention, I think now is a good time to let everyone know that stunts is dangerous. Don't try this at home. Talk to your doctor to see if it's right for you. Some words that have been used to describe that video that you guys just saw was stupid. Everything I did was calculated. I assessed the risk of each situation, and I think I did a pretty good job with each one. Would you say? Thank you. So I'd like to point out that this is my stunt highlight reel. This is the best stuff that I do. Y'all don't see the mistakes. Y'all don't see, the many hours it takes to learn one of those stunts in one of those scenes. You don't see the years of preparation to get to that point. So I'm human. I'm not a superhero, although I play one on TV and film. What the situation calls for. I am not always that badass woman. Sometimes I take breaks, and that's okay. And I encourage everyone to take breaks from their badassery. So I looked up the definition of bold, And it's an adjective meaning fearless and daring or courageous. Based on this definition, we can assume that there's no bravery or courage without fear and without difficulty. So how do we move through this fear and difficulty? On 4 different key points that help me to be more bold in what I do, to have more courage in what I do. 1 is curiosity, 2 is creativity, and then we have doing the inner work to build resilience. Resilience is one of the most important factors of being courageous and being bold in life. If you don't have the strength to be resilient, you're not going to be able to get through what you need to get through. So I'm going to give you guys some tips to help you get over your atrophy. And then do it with friends. We do so much by ourselves, and when we need the most help, we sometimes get stuck. And I'm here to encourage you to ask for help, and it's okay. So. The intro video gave you a little bit about who I am, but here it is written out if that's more helpful. From Princeton. I was a religion major, Spanish minor, and I was pre-med. It's very different than being a stunt person. Maybe, maybe not. My senior thesis took me to the Ecuadorian Amazon, and I studied indigenous healing practices. I was second runner-up for Miss New Jersey USA, and in that same competition, I was Miss Congeniality. I was more interested in making friends with the contestants than winning, I guess. I was a radio show host for 2 different stations, one in New Jersey and one in New Orleans, both independent stations. I was a math and special education teacher, and I've been in 75 film and TV shows. I won a SAG award for my work in Avengers Endgame as a stunt performer. And I am currently a diversity and inclusion advocate for film and TV, and I am also an intimacy coordinator for film and TV. So first, I'd like to talk to you about my experience at Princeton University. I went there thinking I would be a molecular biology major, and I was so excited about it. And then I took a molecular biology class, and then I wasn't so excited about it. But Princeton told me that I'll have 2 years to explore. I don't have to declare a major until the end of my sophomore year, and so I did that. I explored. I took so many classes that I wouldn't normally take, so many things that weren't normal. Students at Princeton spend their senior year in Firestone Library, stuck in a metal room, like literally it's metal, like it's 2 feet by 6 feet, and it's just metal walls, and you're just stuck there in the basement of Firestone Library doing your research, reading books for the whole senior year. Does that sound like fun? No, it didn't sound like fun to me either. So I was like, what else can I do? And the university told me as long as I propose something that they agree with, they'll be fine with it. And I said, okay, cool. So I'm studying religion, I'm a Spanish minor, and I'm pre-med. How can I bring that together and graduate from Princeton, do my research and graduate? So I didn't want to be in the library, I wanted to be out in the field. Because I was a Spanish minor, I decided to choose a Spanish-speaking country. And because I was pre-med, I decided to study. The reason was because I had so much of a curiosity for what I was doing that I didn't think about being far away from home and being outside of an urban area. I had never been in the woods for more than a week up until this point. And that was also through Princeton. They took me on an outdoor action retreat, and it was great. We went backpacking the week before our freshman year. We, got to live in nature and enjoy it, and it was my first time, and I fell in love with it. But also, the community that I was living with, they were so far off the beaten path. To get to them, I had to go to a city called Puyo in Ecuador. It's the city that they call the doorway to the jungle. I call it a city, but it's really a town, a teeny tiny town. Smaller than Des Moines. So this To get to the village, you had to take a taxi to a town, and then you got off the taxi, and the taxi was just a pickup. There's nothing here. I'm like, I know, I'm not sure. And at this point, I'm speaking Spanish. Spanish is my second language. So I didn't even know if I was like saying the right thing. But I get off the bus and I wait about 30 minutes and I'm freaking out the entire time, like I am not in the right place. I can't be. But then I see two women walk out of the woods and they say, "Are you Jazz?" I went by Jazz at the time. Now I go by Jazzy. "Are you Jazz?" "Yeah." "Okay, you ready?" "I think so. Let's go." "All right." And so we start walking. And it's great. It's beautiful. Like the woods are, it's just nature all around, just thick, thick bush. And then an hour turns into 2, turns into 3. We were walking for 8 hours, y'all, through foot-deep jungle mud. And I was like, what am I doing? If I get hurt out here, I'm gonna have to walk this whole way back. And this was my first time in the middle of nowhere. But I still wasn't thinking of what could happen to me. Like, these are all afterthoughts. While I'm in that moment, I'm like, wow, like, I'm really going deep in the jungle. This is so cool. So all of that to say, go with curiosity and you won't think of fear. You'll be able to be bold. You'll be able to say, I went and lived in the jungle for a few months. They're just for me. And this professor was an amazing advisor to me, to the point that when I told her, the tribe isn't telling me their secrets, I have to take ayahuasca for them to tell me their secrets. Mind you, ayahuasca is a hallucinogenic root that they brew and you take, and it's supposed to be a doorway to the spirit world. So I didn't go to Ecuador to do drugs. I'm like, what? You're not gonna, like, I came down here to learn from you. You're not gonna tell me anything unless I do this? And so I emailed my advisor, the professor that they just brought in, and she tells me, do what you need to do. And I said, okay. So I took ayahuasca. I saw what I believed to be Jesus. I don't know. It was a figure of a light being in front of me while I was hallucinating. And after the trip, my guide, I had whatever the guide said that I had, and I brought this research home to Princeton, and it's now in Mudd Library. And that professor who was brought in as a visiting professor just for me and my thesis is now a tenured professor at Princeton, filling a need, forgetting fear, just going with pure curiosity and knowing that you're gonna do what you have to do to get what you want done. Y'all with me? Then, so that's the curiosity side of things. Mind you, I graduated from Princeton. I did not go to med school. I instead went to become a high school math and special education teacher. I loved it, but it was very tiring work. That's what bravery is. That's what boldness is. So I didn't know that I was actually born more brave than other people. I don't know. It must be genetics. I don't know. But I became a dancer at age 2, and that creativity led me to do things that most people wouldn't do. I created stories with my body that would look foolish to other people, but for me was fun, and fun was what mattered at the time. I was a dancer first, and then that led me into acting and stunt performing. And what is the most important aspect, well, maybe not the most important, but an important aspect of being an actor and being a stunt performer is that you get to create experiences that people have never felt before. There's a few people who have come up to me to talk about my work on Avengers or on the have and the have-nots, or what else was mentioned today? The Walking Dead. And the fact that your face is lit up when those shows were mentioned, like I had a part of that, and this was my creativity, bringing you something new, bringing you something bold, bringing you something courageous, and you took it. This can happen for you too if you just reach for your creativity. Like what sparks your creative flow? What's in your mind that you've been waiting to get out? Go after that. You can do it. It'll be great. So let me see where I am. Oh, so that's a picture of me in doing a clinical rotation in jungle clinics. I worked in 12 different clinics throughout the jungle, and I was shadowing doctors to compare Western medicine with indigenous healing practices for the villages that I was working in. The two girls on the side are the girls who came and brought me to the village from the bus, from kilometer marker 51, that 8-hour hike through foot-deep jungle mud. That was them. And they were actually older than me at the time. I was 21, and they were both 23, I believe. And then that was my first experience on a horse. And I think it's important for me to put that out there. And all of this was in the Ecuadorian jungle. Can atrophy, and for me it has. There were moments in my life where I've needed to take a break from being so bold. One of those moments was edited it, sent it in, and it was in by 5 a.m. Mind you, it was due at 8 a.m. At noon that day, noon on Friday, I got a call saying that I booked it. This was for an acting role on Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, and it was Oprah who chose me. Like crazy, right? I almost said no to this. That Monday, I was on set. That means I was at work on the film. And I walked into the hair and makeup trailer. Oprah was sitting in the first seat. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is the moment. But I was too scared to say hi. So instead of saying hi to her directly, I said, good morning, everyone. You know, just a blanket hello to everyone in the trailer. And then I walked over to my seat. My makeup artist started to do my makeup. And when Oprah's makeup was finished, she came over to me and introduced herself to me. Like she needs that. Who doesn't know Oprah? And so she's like, you must be Jazzy, you're playing young Gladys, I'm Oprah. I'm like, Oprah, I know you're Oprah, wow. And I said it just like that and felt like a complete spaz, but hey, I met Oprah. So all of that to say, sometimes you need to take a break, and then when you come back, you'll be ready. So I took about a 2-week break, and before that I had too many auditions a week to even keep my mind straight, and I wasn't getting any work. This one job that I almost turned down turned out to be one of my favorite acting roles ever, and I got to meet Oprah, like not only meet her, but she introduced herself to me. So that's my resiliency on the acting side. I also have an example of resiliency on the stunt side. So there's courage atrophy, and I also like to call it boldness burnout. So many shocking things, you will burn out. So I was doing too much myself to the point that one summer on a stunt, I think it was 2019, I hurt myself seriously, injured my back, and was out of work for a while. Now you saw on my stunt reel, I had a similar occasion where I was being flown 40 feet and I missed the pad by about 2 feet, landed right on my back. And this was my favorite stunt to perform. This is my specialty. You just heard me name out all of the times that I did this stunt with wire work. And I had a block. I couldn't do it anymore. Even after I healed, I couldn't do it for a while. People would call me like, hey, Jazz, are you available on this date? Sure, what's the gag? Oh, we're gonna do a ratchet. A ratchet is a type of wire work, and it's the type of wire work that I actually got injured on. I said, oh, I'm not doing that. And I'm like, wait, I'm losing money. And y'all know I work for money. I'm like, whoa, I need to work this out. And so there's a few steps that I went through to get over that block and to get back into work. And I want to talk to you about that today. So here's just some pictures of me doing stunts. The doubling pictures, and then that was my wardrobe for Avengers Infinity War and Endgame. Oh wait, I'm missing one. Sorry. So there was supposed to be another slide that explained the steps that you go through if you need to build your resilience up again. So I stopped ruminating by writing it out and saying what was actually on my mind. I free wrote every day in my journal for 20 minutes a day, and everything that was at the top of my mind, which mostly was stunts and my injury, I wrote out, and I realized what was holding me back. That, for me, is one of the clearest ways to figure out what's going on inside of me and what the block stems from. And in this case, it was all me. I was telling myself all the wrong things to stop myself from taking the work that I would have been great at. Another thing to do is an exercise that I call, or my therapist called, the silver linings exercise. So for every bad thing for the bad thing that's bothering you at the time, write 3 positive things about it. So in this case, the bad thing was that I had an injury and it was blocking me from doing stunts. The good things were that I had extra time to do other things because stunts had taken over my life in a good way. Like, I loved it, but I did need a break from it to deal with other things. And you can think of other positive things to say, but I like to have, for every negative, 3 positives. And that helps switch my mindset so that I was building up positivity in my life. I wish I had that other slide. Ooh, breathe out. And you go through that for a series of 5 to 10. It calms you down. It clears your emotions out so that you can do what you need to do. Because so many times emotions blocks us from what we're passionate about or what we need to do. Breathe it in, clear your frontal cortex, get to work. Same thing with meditation. And I'd like to talk about how I specifically finished this stunt. I was called for stunt work on Lovecraft Country. It was to do wire work that I wouldn't have to land, so I felt comfortable doing this stunt after my injury because there wouldn't be an impact on my back. And so I went in that day and we did the wire work from 50 feet up, and the wire let me go down to the ground, like right before the ground. Super fun. I love doing stuff like that. We did that again from 30 feet up. And then my boss came up to me, the stunt coordinator, and he said, "Jazz, the director needs you to free fall this without wires. Can you do it from 40 feet? Small. It's getting real small. And I'm also thinking of the accidents that have happened with high falls on set. And I'm like, okay, I can do this, I can do this. And so I start the breathing technique. And it's not the place where I could meditate because the stunt rigger who's lifting the crane is right there beside me, and I need to, remain focused. But breathing was all I needed to do to calm down for that moment. And when I looked down, I was ready. I saw my stunt performers, friends around the pad to move it just in case I was a little bit off, and I felt incredibly safe. The director yelled action, and I went, and I landed perfectly, and it was great. And it made the finale episode of Lovecraft Country, if you want to see it. It was really good. But I got over that block. Like, it went from a wire stunt to a high fall. I wouldn't have been able to do that if I had stayed with that mindset of, not being able to do it or being scared of injuring myself. And I didn't injure myself. And that was one of the longest work days I've had as a stunt performer. It was a 19 or 20 hour day, and I was the person doing all of the stunts. There was no other stunt performer. So it was a lot on my body, and I still did it. And it was because of the breathing. So that's something that you guys can take home with you. The last point that I want to give you guys is when you're trying to go boldly, it's easier to go with friends. To have friends that have the same, and by that I mean go gently. Go with curiosity, go with creativity, go having done the inner work of resilience, and go with friends. Thanks.
Ever have those moments in life where things come together and it just feels right? Like when your favorite band finally takes the stage, watching the sun set after a long summer day, or a night out filled with good friends and great memories? You'll find that kind of vibe when you join our team at AROG. From the moment you walk in the door, you'll feel it. A certain something, a real difference. That's because we've created something special here. A culture where individuals are valued, collaboration is embedded in our teams, and innovation is encouraged at every chance. And you'll go home each day knowing you did something good for our customers when they needed help the most. The cool thing about AROG is that we're large enough to make a big-time impact, yet small enough for us to really get to know each other. Our team members consider each other family, where people care as much about each other as the work they do. So yeah, we work hard, but we also have fun when we need a break. Whether it's a department showdown on the dodgeball court, a friendly game of cards in the AROG Cafe, a lively teen outing, or a rewarding volunteering opportunity. And this caring culture is reflected in the diverse and inclusive benefits AROG offers its team members. With a medical plan that's simply unmatched by others, a 401k plan that's crazy good, and time off to take care of what's important so you have a healthy work-life balance. We invite you to experience what makes AROG so different, yet so inviting. Once you're here, you'll know AROG is the right fit for you because it just feels right. And then it hits you. This isn't just a place of employment, but one of enjoyment. Go to aroglegal.com/careers today and pick up on those good vibes we're putting out.
An initiative for you and I. And if that doesn't rouse your robots, adaptive traffic management using real-time data, giving you the green light. Go! And so you know, they call us a smart city, built by big data from the ground up. Don't blink, it just keeps getting better.
We wanted a building and a facility that would be more welcoming, but at the same time offer that technology. Shive Hattery offered great advice and steered us in the right direction.
Shive has really challenged us to think in a different way. We wanted to maximize value, creating that experience for the student of tomorrow.
I certainly hope that you enjoyed Jazzy Ellis, and what an inspiration she is. To come from dance and then to go into a stunt athlete, really. It was fun to watch. I'm glad that she wasn't up here, taking out my teeth with her high kick or something, which I'm sure she could.
I've experienced worse.
But Dr. Talathia Williams is with us now, and I listened to your talk this morning, and I've got to tell you, so we were up here in a different auditorium, and I was listening intently, and then we were trying to get other things done. But I was so moved and touched by your inspiration, and when you were showing,
you can do it too.
Well, a lot of times, and we've talked about this earlier today too, in some of the little interviews I've had up here.
Yeah.
A lot of us don't see ourselves in a position that maybe would really work for us.
That's right.
I mean, whether you don't see somebody that looks like you, or you just don't think that you're maybe right for that, or you couldn't do that.
Yeah,
I think that was part of the inspiration I had, because I really didn't think that I could make it through math to be a meteorologist.
Yeah,
I wasn't good at it in high
Yeah.
school.
Wow.
I was terrible.
Yeah.
So, but that kind of thing where I think people limit themselves or are allowed to be limited by what they have seen and what they've experienced.
Mm-hmm. It's the power of representation, of seeing yourself reflected in a field, and all of a sudden it becomes so attainable to you. And, it's funny, growing up, my brothers loved to play basketball, but part of it was every day they would see successful Black men on TV playing basketball, and they just practiced and practiced, and they got better at it every day. And so we have to show success in lots of different forms and shapes and different fields.
I tried to practice as well, but I proved that white man can't jump. Not this guy. That's for sure.
Well, they could be a meteorologist, so
be a weather guy. Yeah,
yeah, that's right. That's right.
And it's a great deal because you can blame somebody else, whatever.
You blame the statisticians.
You're the middle. Yes,
yeah,
right,
I know.
No, it was all about the math. But when your son though was just getting into that, you were talking about Christmas and Santa, and oh, how brilliant of you and great that you had a friend that would open up your house and
a neighbor. Don't go Googling my address.
No,
but a neighbor who, he was so excited because it was like he was in on it, and he was like, "Yes, I will go to Walmart. I will shop the clearance, and he wrapped stuff and put it under the trees, and so it was just so fun to see their expression of like, wow, we just did this experiment and we proved that Santa's real.
And I, as a proud moment as a parent, I could feel it from up here when you were talking about it. That was something I would never think of. It would have to be a mom, or to figure that one out because Dad's just going to go, I don't know what I'm going to do. But what I love is the statisticians and the people that really focus on this, and you also kind of got my attention when you say when you log on to Facebook or you get onto whatever you're doing. I feel like there are times where I've mentioned it, and I don't know if Alexa is listening to me or what. People that are here blow me away every year.
Yeah.
I think it's so eclectic to go from a glass blower to a person that's a stunt double and stunt actor.
Like,
a
what?
hacker.
Yeah.
Well, I think the hacking and the whole, that's got a lot to do with it as well. When you talk about numbers and algorithms of people,
that's right.
It's frightening a little bit.
Yeah, I'd have been nervous to be at that table, like, oh, by the way, let me tell you how I hacked your code.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm going home and I'm going to lock down everything I've got at my house.
That's right. Exactly. I'm not that bold.
Go boldly home and shut down your computers.
That's right.
Flush them down the toilet. Get rid of all. But honestly, we've had kids that have grown and gotten out of our house now, and they still have a lot of electronics, I think, left in our house. Not the ones. The PlayStations are all gone.
Yeah.
They're going to take that junk with them. Which
you use that PlayStation.
I do not.
You like that.
I don't know what I'm doing. I can barely take care of my iPhone. In fact, I've lost it. I don't know what happened. It's literally. Oh, it's over there. But it was a pleasure to be with you today, and the inspiration, and just your heart is there and in it. And I can't wait to see who you inspire.
Thank you.
And how this goes on from here.
It's been a treat for me too.
So good to see you again.
Yes.
Yeah. Have a good night. We got these two guys coming over here. Bring it on, boys. Bravo is right. Oops, careful. We have our
perfect entrance.
Yeah,
perfect entrance.
Trip my way into the screen.
You should do it again. Actually,
I like to trip my way in at everything.
Well, you're an actor.
That's what I do.
It was a good piece of acting there, right?
That's right.
I did it on purpose.
Draw attention to yourself. That's what actors do.
Very good. Yeah. Well, I don't know if that's all they do.
I'm an actor. I play one on TV. Yeah. John Delancey, thank you so much for being here today.
My pleasure.
I got to talk to you this much last night, and today. Yeah. I can't wait to hear your presentation tomorrow. And Tony Poston, the man that puts it all together.
Yeah, and we're going to be doing Q&A tomorrow. So we're going to be talking about all things John Delancey tomorrow.
And Q.
We're going to talk and Q, but we're going to talk about his life prior to Q and his life beyond Q and what he does for fun and enjoy. Just a whole thing all about John.
I had no idea.
John, really? At that point, did you have an idea?
No idea. I had just come in to do a job and, knocked it out in a couple of weeks, and off I went.
Well, as actors,
it's the tomato that's stuck on the wall.
But really, you're there to do a job. You're there to do a gig. You don't know
That's
how
right.
long it's going to last.
Right. No one would have said it would have lasted this long. No one. If they knew how to bottle this, it would be on every show.
Well, it's beautiful. It's great that it has. It's so much fun, and it's really. I can't imagine being in your shoes when people come up and I get weather questions. I've been here 35 years.
You know, the
Weather
best one
questions
that I ever got, I was walking down the street in New York, and, you know, you sort of keep your eye, you know, you're scanning, and then I got, the blocks are short, and I just got up on my block, and I saw a guy who looked pretty unsavory over there, and I walked a little bit this way, and he moved. And we were coming closer and closer to him. And I walked this way, and we moved. And now he's right up to me like this, and he goes, "Are you Q?" I go, "Yeah." "Can you bring people back from the dead?"
Oh, my Lancer.
And I said, "Well, only people I like." And he went, "Yeah." And he moved on. Oh, I thought I was going to get mugged in that moment. Right?
Well, we're going to have a lot more of this tomorrow, and these kind of stories tomorrow, because I'm going to queue it up for John. He's going to go to town and tell us all these stories. We have Aaron. We have a full day tomorrow. We have Jason Pfeiffer, who's the editor-in-chief of Entrepreneur Magazine. We have and George Dukas, now Grammy-nominated country singer-songwriter, is going to be doing a concert at the end of the day. Full on.
If you're from Iowa, you can drive, no problem. And of course, you can watch it. You can live stream it as well.
There we go.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both. And we'll have a see you tomorrow, obviously.
Tomorrow.
Thank you.
And we will have a great day tomorrow. We'll enjoy the day, and you are all welcome to come out tomorrow. If not, watch it online.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Self-explanatory, creativity and opportunity.